Texas is a land of wide open spaces, long dusty roads, and small towns where the wind carries whispers of the past. Some towns are quiet. Some towns are forgotten. And some towns lock their doors at sunset for a reason. Travelers passing through speak of shadows moving in abandoned streets, footsteps echoing in empty alleyways, and lights flickering in houses long empty. Children vanish without a trace, dogs bark at nothing, and locals vanish from their own homes at night. Tonight, we will journey through 25 haunted small towns in Texas, where the past is never truly gone, and where the night is a presence you cannot ignore. Greetings, my friend. I hope tonight finds you somewhere safe, where the light holds back the dark, and your heart is ready for stories that cling like shadows. Texas is famous for its wide open plains and bustling cities. But hidden among its rolling hills and deserts are small towns with secrets. The haunted towns we are about to visit have histories marked by disappearances, tragedies, and whispers of spirits that refuse to rest. Visitors hear footsteps echoing down deserted streets. Some feel icy hands brush against their arms. Some see figures standing silently at windows, watching, never blinking. Every town has a story. Every abandoned house has a secret. And every night brings the possibility of a shadow crossing your path. Before we step into these towns, I have a question for you. If you found yourself in a small Texas town at sunset, with all doors locked and no one around, would you dare to walk the streets? And what would you hope or fear to see in the darkness? Share your answer in the comments, if you dare. And let us explore these haunted towns together tonight. Jefferson in Marion County was once a bustling river town, alive with commerce, laughter, and the hum of daily life. The docks were crowded with traders. The river carried the sound of water lapping against ships. Today, the echoes of that life linger faintly, as shadows stretch across empty streets and abandoned warehouses. The town stands quiet, its history etched into the walls and alleys, waiting to be discovered by those who dare to wander after dark. Visitors entering Jefferson at night often feel the weight of its past pressing down. The air is heavy with anticipation, a mixture of river mist and lingering memory. Figures are sometimes glimpsed moving in the corners of warehouses, shadows that do not quite obey the light. They vanish when approached, leaving only the faintest ripple of movement behind. The buildings themselves seem to breathe, exhaling years of forgotten stories into the quiet streets. Footsteps echo in places where no one walks. Empty streets become corridors of tension as each step reverberates against brick and timber. The sound is amplified by the silence, carrying farther than seems possible. Occasionally, doors in old buildings lock on their own, metal latches clicking shut without anyone present. Inside, the darkness feels alive, thick and tangible, wrapping around anyone who enters as if the town itself is testing their courage. The warehouses along the riverfront are particularly eerie. Once filled with crates, goods, and voices, they now sit in stillness. Rusted hinges groan, and the floors creak beneath invisible weight. Shadows move along the walls, sometimes pausing as if observing. A sudden coldness drifts through these spaces, brushing against the skin and causing the hairs to rise. Visitors report a sensation of being watched, of unseen eyes tracking each movement. Even during the day, Jefferson retains a strange energy. The sunlight seems muted, filtered through dust and fog that cling stubbornly to the streets. Faint noises drift from nowhere, creaks, whispers, and the shuffle of feet long gone. Every corner, every alleyway, holds a sense of expectation, as if the town waits for someone to uncover its secrets. The river remains a central presence in Jefferson. Its waters carry the memory of the town's thriving past, reflecting moonlight at night in a silver sheen that stretches across abandoned docks. Sometimes, visitors see ripples in the water without wind, or shapes moving just beneath the surface. The sound of water hitting the piers mixes with indistinct whispers, creating a haunting melody that speaks of lives once lived and lost. Street lamps, long neglected, cast dim pools of light on uneven pavement. Shadows stretch unnaturally in these patches of brightness, moving contrary to logic. Passers-by report glimpsing figures at the edges of vision, disappearing when directly looked at. The atmosphere is dense, heavy with the sensation of history pressing forward. The buildings themselves seem to hold on to the past, each brick and beam carrying echoes of laughter, argument, and sorrow. Abandoned homes add another layer to the town's haunting presence. Windows reveal empty rooms where furniture remains as if waiting for occupants to return. Doors sometimes swing open and shut without cause, and faint voices are heard, just out of comprehension. The air inside these homes carries a chill, even in warm weather, and shadows gather in corners where light cannot reach. The sensation of being watched is persistent, never entirely leaving those who explore. Walking through Jefferson at night, one becomes acutely aware of the unseen. Whispers echo along the alleyways. Footsteps follow without source. And the town seems to breathe around each visitor. The river, the warehouses, and the homes all tell the same story. Life once thrived here, and in some ways, it never left. Those brave enough to stay until the late hours often notice a shift in perception. Shadows lengthen, the mist thickens, and every small noise becomes significant. Visitors feel the weight of the past, the lingering presence of those who walked these streets before. And the awareness that Jefferson is more than it seems. It is a place where history and spirit coexist. A space that retains its stories in the folds of buildings and along the riverbanks. And the awareness that Jefferson is more than it seems. By dawn, the town appears almost normal, the river calm, and the streets empty. Yet, the feeling lingers. Those who leave carry the sensation of being watched, followed, and remembered. Every warehouse, street, and empty home holds a story, waiting for the next visitor to sense its presence. Jefferson is more than a town, it is a guardian of memory. Shadows move in its corners. Whispers drift across its streets. And the river reflects more than light. The buildings, empty yet full of life, remind visitors that history is never truly gone. The town waits, silently and attentively, for those willing to walk its streets, to feel its presence, and to understand that some places never fully surrender to time. In Jefferson, the past lingers. The shadows watch. And every step carries a weight that is impossible to ignore. Erlingua sits quietly at the edge of the desert, a ghost town frozen in time. Its buildings lean and crumble, their wooden frames weathered by decades of sun, wind, and sand. By day, the town appears abandoned, a relic of a forgotten past, yet as night falls, visitors sense an energy that defies explanation. Figures are sometimes seen standing silently among the ruins. They do not move like ordinary people, yet their presence is unmistakable. Shadows stretch unnaturally in the moonlight, gliding across walls and streets with an eerie fluidity. Some passers-by swear the figures watch them from windows or doorways, then vanish when approached. The feeling of being observed persists, a quiet tension that lingers even when no one is visible. Cold gusts of wind follow those who wander the streets after dark. The air is heavier here than elsewhere in the desert, carrying whispers and the faint sound of footsteps that cannot be traced. The temperature shifts suddenly, brushing skin with a chill that seems to come from the ruins themselves. Visitors describe it as a presence, an invisible observer making its existence known through sensation alone. Some who have stayed overnight in Erlingua have vanished without a trace. There are accounts of tents left behind, belongings untouched, and yet the people themselves never returned. Stories circulate among locals and travelers alike, cautioning against lingering too long. These disappearances add to the town's aura of mystery, a warning embedded in its silent streets and empty buildings. The desert surrounding Erlingua contributes to its otherworldly atmosphere. Distant hills rise like dark sentinels, their shadows stretching long in the setting sun. The isolation of the location makes every sound, every movement, feel amplified. A creaking door or a sudden gust of wind becomes a signal, a reminder that this place is not entirely deserted. The buildings themselves seem to hold memory. Wooden floors groan under invisible weight. Doors swing on rusted hinges. And shattered windows reflect light in unexpected ways. Figures glimpsed in the corners of the eye disappear when faced directly, leaving a sense of disorientation. Walkways that were once familiar shift subtly in perception, as if the town rearranges itself in the dark. Visitors often describe a feeling of being followed, not by people, but by the very essence of the town. Shadows stretch across alleyways and courtyards, moving independently of natural light. Sounds echo strangely, footsteps appearing where none exist. And distant murmurs ripple through the air. Every element seems charged with unseen energy, making even the most mundane exploration feel intense and unnerving. Some report hearing conversations, faint and distant, as though residents from another era are speaking just beyond hearing. Others feel touches or brushes that cannot be explained, sudden and fleeting. The sensations are not violent, yet they leave a deep impression, a realization that the town is alive with presence. Each encounter heightens awareness, drawing attention to every sound, movement, and shadow. Attention to every sound, movement, and shadow. Erlingua's history contributes to its haunting. It was once a thriving community, a place of commerce and life. But decline came swiftly. Stories of hardship, abandonment, and conflict echo through the town, carried by the wind and the stones. The energy of those who lived and struggled here seems to linger, shaping the experience of anyone who dares to stay after dark. The desert night amplifies every sensation. Moonlight casts long, shifting shadows across empty streets. Sand drifts silently, covering footprints and erasing evidence of passage. Figures appear at the edge of vision and vanish when approached. The temperature drops suddenly, carrying whispers that are felt more than heard. All of these elements combine to create a palpable tension, an awareness that the ordinary rules of the world do not fully apply here. An awareness that the ordinary rules of the world do not fully apply here. Visitors speak of narrow alleyways where shadows gather. Of courtyards where figures pause as though waiting. And of streets where echoes of laughter, voices, and footsteps persist long after the sounds should have faded. The town seems to exist in multiple dimensions, bridging the past and present in ways that cannot be explained. Some come seeking adventure, others driven by curiosity. Yet all leave with a sense of respect for the mysteries that dwell in Erlingua. The combination of abandoned structures, shifting shadows, and unseen presences creates an experience that is immersive and unforgettable. As dawn approaches, the town falls silent once more. The shadows retreat, the cold wind eases. And the desert sun illuminates the streets in stark clarity. Yet the memory of the night remains. Visitors recall glimpses of figures in doorways. Whispers carried on the wind. And the uncanny feeling of being observed. Erlingua holds its secrets closely, waiting for the next traveler willing to walk its streets under the moonlight and confront the mysteries that linger at the edge of the desert. Indianola in Calhoun County once thrived as a small lakeside community. Its homes clustered near the shoreline, their porches open to the lake breeze. Over the years, relentless storms swept through, tearing apart buildings, washing away streets. Today, only remnants remain, and yet the place carries a presence that draws visitors to its dunes and empty shoreline. Walking across the sand, there is a sense of history lingering beneath the surface. Whispers rise with the wind, soft voices that seem to come from the dunes themselves. They are fleeting, almost imperceptible, but persistent. Visitors often pause, straining to understand whether the sounds are echoes of the past or the imagination responding to the solitude and open landscape. The wind carries them across the sands, blending natural sounds with the subtle suggestions of human presence long gone. Figures appear on the shoreline. Some are distant, just at the edge of vision, watching silently as if guarding the remains of the town. Some are distant, just at the edge of vision, watching silently as if guarding the remains of the town. Their forms are often described as indistinct, human in shape but without clear features. The figures move with calm deliberation, appearing and vanishing in the space between the lake and the dunes. Appearing and vanishing in the space between the lake and the dunes. The figures are not threatening, yet their quiet observation evokes a sense of unease, a reminder that the memory of Indianola is alive in ways that cannot be measured or explained. A sense of unease, a reminder that the memory of Indianola is alive in ways that cannot be measured or explained. Children are sometimes seen playing where no one should be. Shadows dart between the dunes, small movements that vanish when approached. The sound is fleeting, almost like a half-remembered dream, yet it leaves a lasting impression. Witnesses report a mix of nostalgia and melancholy, as though the spirits of the town are replaying moments from a time when life was vibrant along the lake. The dunes rise and fall in soft curves, shaping the horizon and casting long shadows as the sun moves across the sky. That seems to lead toward the unseen figures. While the open expanse of sand and water provides a canvas for the mind to perceive the invisible and the remembered. Evenings are the most evocative. The wind grows cooler across the dunes. Whispers carry more clearly in the hush between waves. The distant figures take on a more tangible presence in the fading light. Small movements, almost imperceptible at first, catch the attention of those who linger. The sound of laughter or soft footsteps may drift from empty spaces, leaving visitors with the impression that Indianola's past still plays out in echoes along the shoreline. Some claim to feel a gentle touch in the sand, as if someone brushes past their feet while moving unseen. Others report an inexplicable heaviness, a sudden awareness of being watched without a visible source. Each visitor interprets the experience differently, yet all agree on a heightened awareness of time and memory embedded in the dunes. The lake itself seems alive with these remnants of the past. Ripples form along the shoreline where no one has stepped. And shadows on the water sometimes mimic human movement. Boats left along the shore appear undisturbed. Yet the impressions of them sometimes shift overnight. There is a rhythm to the lake and dunes. An unspoken narrative that combines natural beauty, memory, and the unexplained into a cohesive experience for those who explore the site. Storms may have destroyed Indianola's structures, but they could not erase its essence. The whispers, figures, and playful shadows of children continue to mark the town's history. Visitors leave with impressions that are both haunting and mesmerizing. A sense of having touched something ephemeral yet enduring. The dunes, shoreline, and water together form a landscape that is at once serene and mysterious, inviting reflection on the passage of time and the subtle persistence of memory. The dunes, shoreline, and water together form a landscape that is at once serene and mysterious, inviting reflection on the passage of time and the subtle persistence of memory. Indianola is more than a forgotten town. It is a living reminder that even when structures vanish, human presence lingers in unexpected ways. The whispers in the sand, the silent watchers along the shore, and the fleeting play of children offer a glimpse into a world that bridges past and present, memory and imagination. The experience leaves a lasting impression, encouraging those who visit to move carefully, observe closely, and remember. That some places retain the echo of life long after it has changed. For those who come to Indianola, the wind, water, and dunes provide more than scenery. They offer a stage for stories that unfold silently. A place where visitors can feel the weight of history and the persistence of unseen presence. The town may no longer exist in physical form, but its essence continues to stir the sands, watch the shoreline, and whisper across the wind. In this way, Indianola endures, both in memory and in the subtle, mysterious presence that continues to captivate all who visit. In this way, Indianola endures, both in memory and in the subtle, mysterious presence that continues to captivate all who visit. Bandera in Bandera County is celebrated for its wide-open skies, rolling hills, and cowboy heritage. Visitors come to experience rodeos, horseback riding, and the charm of a town steeped in Western tradition. Yet beneath the lively FAA Section Ade and festive atmosphere, the town holds stories less often told, a presence that lingers long after the sun sets and the streets grow quiet. As evening descends, the streets empty and a hushed tension settles over the town. Figures have been seen in saloons long after the last patrons leave, standing silently near the bar or moving slowly across wooden floors. They appear as echoes of the past, reminders of lives that shaped the town's history. Their presence is subtle yet undeniable, a quiet testimony to stories that never fully fade. Visitors report doors swinging open or closing on their own, often accompanied by soft creaks that echo through the empty buildings. The sounds are gentle at first, almost mistaken for the settling of old wood. But they carry an unsettling rhythm, a pattern that seems to respond to those who walk the halls. Shadows stretch across the walls, shifting with no discernible source of light, giving the impression that the town itself watches silently. Footsteps are a common occurrence in the quiet of Bandera at night. The sounds are light yet deliberate, echoing against storefronts and alleyways. Those who experience it often feel the presence of something unseen, a companion that moves with them without revealing itself, heightening the tension with every step. The saloons, once filled with laughter and music, hold an atmosphere thick with history. Old chairs remain in place, glasses dusted and still, yet shadows move among them as if the night remembers the conversations and melodies of long ago. Patrons may feel a chill when crossing the threshold, a sensation that someone, or something, has passed through moments before. The past and present converge in these quiet spaces, blurring the lines between memory and reality. Bandera's streets carry their own weight. The wind whistles through narrow alleys, stirring whispers that seem to come from no particular direction. Even the familiar landscape becomes mysterious at night, each corner and doorway hinting at stories untold. Visitors often pause, sensing that the town, with all its charm and history, has secrets hidden just beneath the surface. At the edges of town, old buildings and deserted ranches tell silent stories of lives once lived. Windows reflect more than the moonlight. Sometimes, faint figures appear, standing in observation, before vanishing into the darkness. The sensation is subtle, but those who notice feel an unshakable awareness. A sense that the area remembers its past, and acknowledges every step taken by the living. Visitors recount subtle touches of cold air that move without explanation. Hallways seem longer than they should be, corners darker, and the quiet heavier. Sounds that would be ordinary elsewhere, a creak, a whisper, a distant laugh carry weight here, amplified by the stillness of night. Each detail contributes to the impression that Bandera is alive in a way that cannot be measured, a presence woven into the town's very fabric. Despite the mysterious occurrences, there is a beauty to Bandera at night. The air is filled with the scent of sage and earth, a reminder that nature itself participates in the quiet symphony of the town. Yet amid this serene beauty lies a constant awareness, a recognition that the past remains close and ever-present. For those who explore after dark, the experience is unforgettable. Each creaking floorboard, every shifting shadow, and unexplained movement becomes part of a narrative larger than themselves. Bandera reveals itself slowly, showing that the history of the cowboy capital of the world is not just in the rodeos and festivals, but also in the silent witnesses, the echoes of footsteps, and the lingering figures that appear when the town falls asleep. As dawn approaches, the streets gradually come alive once more. The shadows retreat, whispers fade. And the saloons return to the quiet hum of the waking day. Yet for those who have walked the empty streets at night, the memory of figures, footsteps, and doors that move on their own remains. Bandera continues to captivate with its dual identity. A place of celebration by day and quiet mystery by night, where the echoes of the past never fully disappear. The town stands as a testament to time, preserving both its vibrant culture and the subtle, unexplained occurrences that linger in corners and hallways. Bandera is a town where every visitor can feel the pulse of history, a place where shadows and whispers become part of the landscape, and the past lives alongside the present. Here, the stories are never fully told, and the mysteries wait patiently for those willing to notice. Bandera is a living narrative, an intersection of heritage and enigma. By day, it welcomes the living with open streets and spirited gatherings. By night, it invites reflection on the unseen, the unexplained, and the stories that persist long after the lights are extinguished. Visitors leave with more than memories, they carry a sense of place, of a town that watches silently, where the echoes of history are never far away. Jefferson in Harrison County seems quiet at first glance. The streets appear ordinary, lined with old homes and weathered storefronts, yet the air carries a subtle weight. A sense of anticipation that something unseen is watching. The town feels alive in its stillness, whispering tales of its past to anyone who ventures too close. Visitors often report the faint sound of crying echoing across empty streets. It is not constant, but intermittent, drifting from nowhere and everywhere at once. The sound seems to reach deep into the soul, evoking memories and fears that are difficult to place. The streets grow colder as evening falls, and the weight of history presses down with an almost tangible presence. Old homes add another layer of unease to Jefferson. Their doors lock automatically at sunset, sometimes trapping visitors inside until morning. Inside, the rooms seem unchanged by time, yet they feel occupied by something invisible. Shadows move across walls, corners feel impossibly dark, and the air carries an unusual chill. Every step taken within these homes amplifies the awareness that the town is alive, attentive, and aware of intruders. The boardwalks along the riverfront are particularly unsettling. Once bustling with merchants and townsfolk, they now lie empty. Creaking with each passing breeze. Shadows appear to glide along the planks, pausing as if observing anyone who dares to walk their length. The sound of footsteps sometimes follows, echoing from behind, yet when turned toward, nothing is there. The river itself seems to hold memories in its currents. Reflecting more than the moonlight that dances across its surface. As darkness deepens, the town reveals more of its secrets. Faint whispers drift from open windows, soft enough to be missed but insistent enough to catch attention. Visitors report glimpses of figures standing in alleyways or peering from upstairs windows. They vanish when approached, leaving only the sense of being watched. The feeling grows heavier with each step. The streets wind unpredictably, leading visitors past forgotten homes, boarded-up shops, and narrow alleys. Each structure seems to hold a fragment of the past, memories frozen in the air like dust motes in sunlight. Faint creaks, whispers, and shifting shadows all contribute to a growing sense of unease. Even the smallest noisesa, a distant thud or the rustle of leaves carry significance, amplified by the silence that dominates the town. Even the smallest noise, a distant thud or the rustle of leaves, carry significance, amplified by the silence that dominates the town. Inside the old homes, the air is colder than outside. Objects sometimes shift subtly, as if touched by unseen hands. Shadows linger in corners, not retreating even when illuminated by flashlight or lantern. Some visitors feel icy fingers brush their arms or shoulders, fleeting but unmistakable. The sensation leaves a lasting impression, an awareness that the town's history is not entirely at rest. Boardwalks, alleyways, and abandoned shops all seem to follow an unspoken rhythm. Shadows move in tandem with the faintest sound of wind or distant cry, creating a delicate balance between the seen and unseen. Each turn, each doorway, presents a new possibility of encounter. A new reminder that Jefferson harbors more than physical history. The town itself seems conscious, aware of who wanders within its streets after dark. Visitors who remain late into the night often report a strange disorientation. Familiar streets seem to shift, alleys appear longer than expected, and corners seem to bend subtly. The town has a way of drawing attention to its quiet stories, revealing small details, a flicker of movement, a whisper, a shift in temperature that suggest life beyond the visible. It is a subtle, insistent presence, patient and observant, allowing for glimpses but never full understanding. By early morning, Jefferson appears calm again. The streets are empty, the air clear, and the boardwalks are just wood and shadow. Yet the memory of the night lingers, leaving a sense that the town is alive in ways the eye cannot see. Those who have walked its streets carry with them the weight of being observed. Of knowing that Jefferson holds its past close and refuses to relinquish it entirely. The town of Jefferson in Harrison County is more than a collection of buildings and streets. It is a keeper of memory, a guardian of shadows, and a witness to countless untold stories. Every boardwalk, home, and alley holds the echo of voices long gone, whispering softly to those who dare to listen. Visitors leave with an understanding that some towns never truly sleep. That some places remain alive with history. And that Jefferson watches, always watching. Even when the world around it seems still. Martha lies quietly on the edge of the desert, a small town marked by wide open skies and endless horizons. By day, it appears ordinary, a place of historic buildings, quiet streets, and the slow rhythm of daily life. Yet as night descends, a transformation occurs. Lights appear in the distance, floating above the desert plains with movements that defy explanation. Some lights seem to take shape, forming human silhouettes that hover and glide across the horizon. Their movements are deliberate, almost sentient, as if observing the town and anyone who ventures into the darkness. Visitors often feel the weight of unseen eyes upon them, a sensation that heightens as the lights shift and flicker, casting shadows that dance across the empty streets. Figures sometimes appear in windows of historic buildings, watching silently before vanishing when approached. The sudden disappearance creates a disorienting effect, leaving visitors questioning what is real and what is imagined. Footsteps echo along deserted sidewalks, yet when explored, there is no one there. The town feels alive with presence, a quiet tension that permeates every corner under the vast Texas sky. The origin of the lights has fascinated observers for decades. They appear without warning, shifting from one area of the desert to another. Hovering above mesas, valleys, and empty roads. Some move in patterns that suggest intelligence, responding to those who try to follow them. Others flicker briefly and vanish into the night, leaving nothing but darkness and the lingering sense of a presence just out of reach. Those who wander the town at night describe a surreal atmosphere. Street lamps cast long shadows, and the familiar shapes of buildings take on strange contours under the shifting glow of the lights. A simple walk down an empty street becomes an experience filled with anticipation and unease. Every sound, every movement, feels amplified. The wind carries whispers that seem almost deliberate, brushing across the skin and heightening the sense that one is not alone. Visitors report moments of unexpected interaction. Shadows shift in ways that suggest figures moving just beyond perception. Reflections in windows sometimes show forms that do not belong to the observer, faces that vanish the instant they are fully seen. Doors creak as if nudged by invisible hands, and cold gusts of wind seem to follow individuals as they explore, emphasizing the feeling of unseen companions. The desert surrounding Marfa adds to the otherworldly quality of the town. The open landscape allows the lights to be seen from miles away, and the quiet emptiness creates a sense of isolation. At times, the horizon seems alive, the sky itself a canvas for shifting shapes and luminous forms. The combination of natural stillness and unexplained phenomena creates an immersive experience, where reality feels flexible and perception becomes uncertain. Some report hearing voices in the distance, soft murmurs that rise and fall with the desert wind. Others describe footsteps on empty streets or the sensation of being followed, yet when turning, there is nothing there. The lights often intensify this effect, appearing closer or brighter when attention is focused elsewhere, as though aware of observation. Many visitors describe the feeling of being drawn to the lights, a compulsion to follow them into the desert. Those who attempt it often find the terrain changing subtly, hills and mesas appearing where none were noticed before. Time seems to stretch, minutes feeling like hours, and the lights shift in ways that challenge perception. It is an experience that lingers long after leaving, the memory of the desert and its glowing phenomena etched into consciousness. The town's history and culture add layers to the experience. Marfa has long been a hub for art, exploration, and experimentation. And its reputation for the unexplained has become part of its identity. The lights and the figures associated with them blend with the town's atmosphere, creating a narrative that is both mysterious and compelling. Visitors sense a deep connection between the land, the sky, and the unseen forces that seem to inhabit the night. Every night brings the potential for discovery. The lights may appear in isolation, solitary orbs hovering silently, or in groups that move together in formations reminiscent of dance. Figures materialize at edges of buildings, along streets, and near the desert horizon. Their presence is fleeting yet undeniable, leaving impressions on those who witness them that are impossible to dismiss. Marfa's nights are not simply dark, they are charged with anticipation. The air is thick with silence and expectation, punctuated by the subtle movements of light and shadow. The experience is immersive, demanding awareness, and opening perception to possibilities beyond the ordinary. Every glance toward the horizon, every step on the quiet streets, becomes an encounter with the unknown. By dawn, the town resumes its quiet routine. The lights fade, the shadows retreat, and the desert returns to calm. Yet the memory of the night remains vivid. Visitors recall figures in windows, silhouettes hovering on the horizon, and the feeling of being watched by something unseen. Marfa holds its secrets tightly, a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary intersect, and where the desert night promises encounters that defy explanation and ignite the imagination. Luckenbach in Gillespie County is a small, unassuming town with a rich musical heritage that has drawn visitors for generations. Its quiet streets and weathered buildings tell a story of a community built on music, celebration, and the simple rhythms of rural life. Yet beneath the surface of its charming exterior lies a presence that is felt rather than seen, a lingering energy that carries the echoes of musicians past and moments long gone. Walking along the dusty streets, there is a sense of expectation, as if the town itself waits for an unseen performance to begin. Empty stages sit under open-air pavilions, their wooden boards worn smooth by years of dancing feet. Visitors report seeing figures on these stages, musicians in attire from decades past. They move with precision, strumming guitars, bowing fiddles, or tapping drums, yet no sound accompanies their performance. The figures are ghostly, shimmering at the edges, their presence fleeting yet undeniable. Doors in the town seem to act of their own accord. A visitor might enter a small shop or hall and leave only to find the door has shut, or even locked, without anyone near. The sound of hinges clicking or latches sliding resonates unusually in the quiet, leaving a sense of unseen motion. Some describe the doors as guiding visitors along the streets, as if encouraging them to follow a path that exists just beyond the ordinary, one that leads through history and memory. The sensations are not limited to sight and sound. Guests often report a cold tap on the shoulder. Light but unmistakable, as if someone is seeking attention or offering silent companionship. These moments are fleeting, often leaving visitors questioning whether they imagined the experience or truly encountered something beyond the tangible world. Evenings in Luckenbach hold a unique atmosphere. The quiet is punctuated by faint sounds, footsteps that do not belong to anyone visible, or the subtle hum of a melody carried on the wind. The town's musical history seems to resonate in these moments, an invisible current that flows through the air, touching those who remain long enough to sense its presence. The town's old buildings amplify the effect. Weathered wood and stone hold memories like a recording, capturing the energy of past performances, conversations, and celebrations. Visitors often pause in doorways or on porches, sensing an attention directed toward them, as if the town itself is watching. The interplay of shadow and light creates illusions of movement, figures glimpsed in peripheral vision, or subtle changes in the environment that suggest unseen hands at work. Spectral musicians are not always stationary. Some are seen walking through streets, carrying instruments or tuning their gear, their figures fading in and out of existence. Their presence seems tied to the heartbeat of the town, appearing most vividly when the visitor is alone or particularly attentive. Music may be felt more than heard, a vibration in the air, a memory of melody that exists just beyond the capacity of the human ear. It is a connection to the life of Luckenbach that continues to linger long after the last live performance has ended. Visitors describe a mixture of emotions. There is nostalgia, an acknowledgement of the town's vibrant past, mingled with an eerie curiosity. The sense of being observed, touched, or accompanied by unseen figures creates a narrative that is deeply personal. As each visitor interprets the experience in their own way. Some feel joy at glimpsing the spirit of music that permeates the town, while others experience a more haunting awareness of absence. The invisible audience and performers who once filled every corner of the community. Visitors describe a mixture of emotions. The open spaces of the town of the pavilion, the streets, the small dance halls act as stages for these unseen interactions. Shadows move along walls or across the ground, sometimes accompanied by the faint impression of sound. The effect is subtle, yet persistent, reminder that Luckenbach's identity is rooted in human presence, and that the energy of those who lived, celebrated, and performed here has not entirely faded. Luckenbach is more than a place of music. It is a landscape where past and present intertwine. Where the tangible world meets something just beyond perception. The cold taps, the moving shadows, and the ghostly musicians create a narrative that is felt rather than fully understood, a cinematic experience of place and memory. Visitors leave carrying impressions of the town's invisible performances, of footsteps heard but not seen, and of moments suspended between history and the present. The town endures as a living testament to its musical past, with every building, stage, and street corner holding a story. Visitors sense the lingering presence of those who once filled these spaces with song and movement. In Luckenbach, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, as the quiet streets and empty stages reveal that music, memory, and unseen presence can coexist in a subtle, powerful harmony. The town invites exploration, reflection, and a recognition that some places remain alive not only in their physical form but in the echoes, whispers, and shadows that continue to shape the experience of those who walk among them. Gonzales in Gonzales County is a town rich in history, its streets lined with buildings that have witnessed generations of change. Its vibrant culture and historic charm attract visitors seeking to experience the heart of Texas. Yet beneath the welcoming FAA Section 8 lies a quieter, more mysterious side. As the sun dips below the horizon, the town's past seems to awaken, weaving shadows and whispers into the fabric of the night. The alleyways of Gonzales are narrow and lined with aged brick and wooden facades. At night, figures have been seen moving silently along these paths, their presence subtle yet undeniable. They appear without warning, standing motionless before vanishing into the darkness. The faint impression of movement leaves an unsettling feeling for those who walk these streets after dark. A sense that the past is observing, ever watchful. Empty homes hold their own stories. Visitors often hear whispers that seem to come from nowhere, drifting through hallways and empty rooms. The sounds are soft, almost indistinct, like fragments of conversations from decades past. These voices leave a lasting impression, creating a sense that the very walls of Gonzales carry memories, preserving the echoes of lives that once filled them. Walking through the town at night, some feel an unseen presence following them. The sensation is subtle at first, a quiet pressure or the impression of eyes on their back. Footsteps seem to fall in rhythm with their own, yet when they turn to look, no one is there. The air carries a quiet tension, a reminder that history in Gonzales is not only remembered but felt. The streets themselves tell stories that mimic the shape of its past, stirring whispers from empty corners and forgotten doorways. A walk through time, a journey alongside the invisible inhabitants who linger in memory and shadow. Historic landmarks add to the town's atmosphere. Courtyards, old storefronts, and wooden balconies have witnessed celebrations, disputes, and everyday life for generations. At night, these structures seem to take on a life of their own. Shadows shift where no light falls, and faint sounds of movement echo through spaces that appear still and empty. Visitors often feel the weight of history pressing close, a quiet reminder that the past is never truly gone. Some report glimpsing figures in the corners of their vision, vanishing when directly observed. Others hear creaking floorboards or doors moving gently, as if someone had just passed through. Even the quietest nights are filled with subtle activity, a presence that is both intangible and persistent. The sensation is disorienting, yet it draws people deeper into the town, inviting them to explore both the visible and the unseen. The sense of being watched is common. Residents and visitors alike describe moments when the feeling of attention is nearly tangible, an awareness that extends beyond sight or sound. Even in open streets or well-lit areas, there is a distinct impression that unseen observers linger just beyond perception. This creates an atmosphere of suspense, where every shadow and whisper is amplified by the mind's natural caution. Where every shadow and whisper is amplified by the mind's natural caution. This creates an atmosphere of suspense, where every shadow and whisper is amplified by the mind's natural caution. Gonzales also holds moments of quiet reflection. The town's plazas and parks, illuminated by moonlight, appear serene yet carry a hidden tension. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of night birds, and the faint echo of steps on brick paths combine to create an environment that is both beautiful and mysterious. Visitors often pause in these spaces, sensing layers of history interwoven with the present, and the subtle presence of those who came before. The alleys, homes, and streets converge to form a narrative that is both tangible and ethereal. Every corner holds a memory, every shadow hints at a story, and every whisper serves as a reminder of lives once lived. Even as the night deepens, the town does not reveal all its secrets. The presence that lingers is patient, observant, and unhurried. Visitors may leave with only fragments of experience, fleeting glimpses of figures or the sensation of being followed. Yet those moments are enough to convey the enduring mystery of Gonzales. By dawn, the town returns to its familiar rhythm. Streets fill with activity, shops open. And the shadows retreat. Yet for those who have walked its paths at night, the memory of whispers, figures, and unseen presences remains. Gonzales is a place where the past is alive, layered within every brick and beam, waiting for those who are willing to notice the stories that do not fully reveal themselves. In Gonzales, history is not merely a record. It is a presence that shapes the experience of the town. A subtle companion in the quiet of night. A reminder that even in a bustling community, the echoes of the past remain ever near. The town invites exploration, reflection, and awareness. Showing that its charm is not only in the daylight, but in the lingering mysteries that emerge when the world grows still. Rusk in Cherokee County sits quietly along old railroad tracks, its streets lined with weathered buildings that whisper of a time long past. The town carries a reputation that grows heavier with each passing year, a sense of something unseen lingering in the corners of its empty streets. Shadows stretch across the tracks, moving in ways that defy explanation, and the air seems charged with memories that refuse to fade. Visitors often report seeing figures standing along the abandoned tracks. They do not move like ordinary people, and they vanish when approached, leaving only the sense that the town is alive with its own history. The echo of footsteps sometimes follows those who walk the tracks. Yet when turned toward, there is no one there. The rails themselves seem to hum softly at night, resonating with the weight of years gone by and the stories carried upon them. Old warehouses add another layer of unease. Lights appear inside, flickering in spaces long emptied of activity. Windows remain dark, yet visitors swear they see movement within. The structures seem aware of the presence of intruders, reacting in subtle ways, a shift in shadow, a faint creak of wood, a whisper that drifts from nowhere. Doors lock automatically as night falls, making entry and exit unpredictable. Once inside, the atmosphere is dense and cold, the air heavy with anticipation. The streets of Rusk are lined with abandoned shops and homes. Each building tells a story through peeling paint, broken windows, and the faint smell of old wood. As the sun sets, the town takes on a different character. Shadows lengthen and merge, creating shapes that seem almost human. Sounds that are barely audible during the dia creaks, distant knocks, the rustle of wind gain significance, as though the town itself is communicating through them. Along the tracks, the presence of the past is strongest. The rails glisten faintly under moonlight, and the ties creak under invisible weight. Figures appear and disappear, walking parallel to the tracks or standing still, watching silently. The air carries the faint scent of coal and old timber, a reminder of the town's origins. Some visitors feel a cold brush on their arms or shoulders, subtle yet unmistakable, as if the past is reaching out to remind them of its enduring presence. Inside the warehouses, shadows move with intent. Old crates and machinery cast long forms in the flickering light. Whispers rise from corners, soft and intermittent, calling attention to unseen details. Objects sometimes shift without explanation, doors swing slowly closed, and the floorboards groan under no visible weight. Its stories are revealed gradually, layer by layer, through fleeting glimpses and subtle signs. The town's atmosphere is thick with anticipation. The sense of being watched is constant, and ordinary sounds take on unfamiliar qualities. The wind through empty streets seems almost sentient, carrying echoes from the tracks, warehouses, and abandoned homes. Each step taken after dark feels measured, significant, as though it participates in an ongoing dialogue with the town itself. The longer one remains, the more apparent it becomes that Rusk has a consciousness of its own, attuned to those who wander its quiet corners. Visitors often describe a feeling of disorientation. Familiar streets seem to shift slightly, alleys appear longer than expected, and buildings seem to rearrange themselves. The town's geometry becomes fluid under the veil of night, heightening the sense of mystery. Even in the light of day, there is an undercurrent of unease, a knowledge that the town's stories are not fully visible, and that what is unseen holds far more weight than what can be observed. Rusk is a town that exists in multiple layers of time. The past lingers not as history alone but as a living presence. Figures along the tracks, lights in empty warehouses, and the cold touch of invisible fingers all serve as reminders that the town is more than the sum of its buildings and streets. It is a keeper of memory, a repository of the lives and stories that shaped it, never allowing them to fade entirely. Never allowing them to fade entirely. By dawn, the town appears calm, the tracks empty, warehouses silent, and streets seemingly abandoned. Yet the memory of the night remains vivid. Those who have walked Ruska's paths carry with them a sense that they have been part of something larger. A town that observes, interacts, and remembers. Its shadows linger, its whispers echo, and the past continues to move silently alongside the present, waiting for the next visitor to discover its secrets. Rusk in Cherokee County is more than an old railroad town. It is a place where history breathes in shadow and sound. Where every creak, whisper, and flicker of light tells a story. Visitors leave with an awareness that some towns never fully sleep. That some places hold their past in ways that cannot be measured. And that Rusk watches quietly. Patiently, and always. That Rusk watches quietly, patiently, and always. That Rusk watches quietly, patiently, and always. This is Rusk. Alpine sits quietly at the edge of the desert, a town of warm hues and open skies. By day, it appears peaceful, a place where the sun casts long shadows across adobe buildings and quiet streets. Yet as the day fades and twilight settles over the hills, a different energy emerges. Visitors report sensations that defy explanation, hints of presence lingering just beyond the edge of sight. Voices drift from the hills surrounding the town, faint at first, then clearer as if calling the names of those who listen. The sound carries across the desert air, echoing from ridges and rocky outcrops. Sometimes it is a whisper, delicate and almost melodic, other times a sudden, startling call that leaves hearts racing. Those who follow the sound rarely find its source, only the emptiness of the desert stretching in every direction. Figures appear at dusk along rooftops and terraces, silhouetted against the fading light. They seem to watch the streets below, motionless yet present. When approached, they vanish, leaving only the memory of their stance. And the quiet tension of their observation. Shadows in windows move independently, fleeting glimpses of movement that disappear when attention is focused. The town becomes alive in subtle ways, filled with hints of unseen watchers. Inside old buildings and homes, the air sometimes grows inexplicably cold. Doors creak as though brushed by invisible hands. A sudden gust chills the skin and causes curtains to ripple, despite the stillness of the desert night. Guests often report feeling touches that leave no mark, a fleeting pressure or icy brush that disappears before it can be fully understood. The sensation lingers, a whisper of presence, a reminder that the ordinary can shift into the extraordinary at any moment. Alpine streets at night are quiet, yet charged with an unseen energy. Footsteps echo along empty sidewalks, soft and deliberate. Sometimes the sound comes from behind, yet when turned to look, no one is there. The echo persists, leaving a sense of anticipation, as if the town itself holds its breath. Street lamps cast long, stretching shadows, creating shapes that seem to shift when unobserved. Every corner becomes a potential crossing point, every alley a threshold between the visible and the hidden. The hills surrounding Alpine contribute to its mysterious aura. From a distance, they appear serene, bathed in the glow of sunset or moonlight. Yet those who explore the ridges at night report fleeting figures crossing the slopes. Shadows that move against the landscape in ways that seem deliberate. Some describe seeing shapes pause and watch before disappearing into the darkness. As if the desert itself holds memories of past visitors and echoes of lives long gone. Sounds carry differently in Alpine. The desert air amplifies even the faintest noises, making distant footsteps, whispers, and calls seem immediate and intimate. A lone visitor can feel surrounded by presence. The combination of isolation and subtle disturbances creating a heightened awareness of the unseen. Each gust of wind becomes a voice. Each shifting shadow a potential figure watching silently. Evenings bring the most vivid encounters. Figures appear along rooftops and terraces, sometimes accompanied by soft murmurs that float on the wind. Windows reveal shapes that do not belong, faces glimpsed for a second before disappearing. Inside homes and cabins, sudden chills rise and fall, as though the air remembers the lives that once filled the rooms. Visitors find themselves pausing, sensing that the town observes them in ways both subtle and undeniable. Alpine is more than a town, it is a living tapestry of history and presence. The land holds the memory of generations, and the desert wind carries whispers from the past. Visitors describe experiences that linger long after departure, the sensation of being watched, followed, and accompanied by unseen figures. Each night adds to the town's story, layers of observation and interaction that blend with the natural rhythm of desert life. The combination of light and shadow, wind and sound, creates an immersive atmosphere. Even the most ordinary street or building takes on an uncanny presence under the desert night. A solitary walk becomes a journey through memory and perception, where the boundaries between the visible and the invisible blur. Each echo of footsteps, each shadow that shifts, reinforces the feeling that Alpine is alive in ways that surpass ordinary understanding. By morning, the desert returns to quiet. Sunlight warms adobe walls and empty streets, erasing the fleeting forms of the night. Yet the memory remains, etched in the minds of those who witnessed the subtle manifestations of presence. Alpine is a place where the desert and the supernatural coexist, where the ordinary unfolds into the mysterious, and where every shadow, whisper, and icy gust tells a story waiting to be discovered. Visitors leave carrying the imprint of Alpine's atmosphere. The voices in the hills, the figures on rooftops, and the cold touches indoors remain vivid in memory. The town continues its quiet life by day. Yet the night holds a perpetual invitation to the unknown. Alpine is a place where the desert is alive. Where the past lingers in the present. And where the unseen shapes the experience of anyone willing to walk its streets and listen to its whispers. Rockport in Aransas County is a coastal town steeped in maritime history. Its streets and docks carrying echoes of a past shaped by the sea. The town's charm is undeniable, with weathered buildings lining quiet streets. And the harbor stretching into waters that have witnessed centuries of travel, trade, and occasional tragedy. Yet beneath its picturesque surface, Rockport holds a presence that lingers in whispers and shadows. A reminder of those lost to the relentless tides. Walking along the docks at dusk, visitors often notice figures standing silently at the water's edge. They are not immediately recognized as people, for their outlines are hazy, their features indistinct. Yet their presence is undeniable. Some stand motionless for minutes at a time, gazing toward the horizon, only to vanish when approached. The air carries a faint chill, a reminder that the town's history is not confined to memory alone. The sound of the waves is ever present, a constant backdrop to life in Rockport. Yet occasionally, visitors hear faint cries mingling with the surf, soft and sorrowful, as if carried from another time. These sounds are not loud or threatening, but they provoke a sense of unease, a reminder of the Oceana's power and the many lives it has claimed over the years. It is a haunting melody that blends seamlessly with the rhythm of the town, drawing attention to the unseen and the unknown. Historic buildings along the waterfront contribute to the town's mysterious ambience. Doors that have welcomed generations of townsfolk and travelers sometimes lock automatically at sunset, sealing themselves without human intervention. Passers-by report the sensation of being watched, a subtle pressure in the air as if the town itself acknowledges their presence. Shadows shift along walls and windows, creating fleeting images that seem just beyond comprehension, adding to the eerie sense of history alive within the architecture. Even in daylight, the town retains an air of quiet suspense. Visitors walking along the piers or watching fishing boats return note how the environment seems alive with subtle movements that cannot be explained. Ripples appear on the water where no breeze stirs, and the faint impression of footsteps echoes across wooden planks long after people have passed. The history of Rockport is inseparable from the sea. Stories of sailors lost during storms, of fishermen who never returned, are woven into the town's identity. This connection between land and water creates a cinematic quality, where the boundary between the living and the unseen is fluid. And every element of the town seems to carry a story. Visitors frequently describe sensations that are difficult to attribute to natural causes. A sudden coldness passes over the harbor even on warm days. The subtle feeling of being followed or observed can make the quiet streets seem much larger than they are. Figures occasionally appear on distant piers, their outlines blurred against the fading light, then dissolve into the evening mist. These experiences leave a lasting impression, reminding all who visit that Rockport's charm is accompanied by mystery. The town's docks, lined with weathered planks and iron cleats, provide a stage for many of these encounters. Some report seeing shadows moving along the edges of the piers, figures who step lightly across the boards before vanishing entirely. The rhythm of the waves beneath them seems to harmonize with their motion, creating an atmosphere where the natural and supernatural intertwine. Boats, both modern and historic, sometimes rock gently even when the water is calm, as if unseen hands are at work, guiding them with intent. Historic structures that line the waterfront amplify the effect. Whispers seem to originate from the walls themselves, soft murmurs carried on the wind, only noticed by those who are still enough to sense them. The overall experience is immersive, blending history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena into a narrative that lingers long after leaving the town. Blending history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena into a narrative that lingers long after leaving the town. Lingers long after leaving the town. Creating an environment where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. Where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. The town is a character in itself. A place where history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena blend. Lingers long after leaving the town. A place where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. Creating an immersive experience. Blending history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena. A narrative that lingers long after leaving the town. Where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. The overall experience is immersive. Blending history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena into a narrative that lingers long after leaving the town. An environment where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. Creating an immersive experience. Where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. A place where history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena blend. Lingers long after leaving the town. The overall experience is immersive. Blending history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena into a narrative that lingers long after leaving the town. An environment where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. Creating an immersive experience. Where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. A place where history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena blend. Lingers long after leaving the town. The overall experience is immersive. Blending history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena into a narrative that lingers long after leaving the town. An environment where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. Creating an immersive experience. Where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. A place where history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena blend. Lingers long after leaving the town. The overall experience is immersive. Blending history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena into a narrative that lingers long after leaving the town. An environment where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. Creating an immersive experience. Where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. A place where history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena blend. Lingers long after leaving the town. The overall experience is immersive. Blending history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena into a narrative that lingers long after leaving the town. An environment where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. Creating an immersive experience. Where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. A place where history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena blend. Lingers long after leaving the town. The overall experience is immersive. Blending history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena into a narrative that lingers long after leaving the town. An environment where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. Creating an immersive experience. Where every corner, doorway, and window has a story. A place where history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena blend. Lingers long after leaving the town. Evenings in Rockport are particularly evocative. The sun sinks toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Shadows stretch across streets and docks, providing the perfect backdrop for figures glimpsed at the water's edge. The combination of fading light, gentle waves, and unseen presence creates a cinematic experience, where history and memory blend seamlessly. Visitors sense both the beauty and the quiet sorrow that the town carries, a duality that enhances the allure of the coastal environment. Rockport endures as a living reminder of the past. Its streets, piers, and historic buildings continue to tell stories without words. Visitors who walk quietly along its paths may witness the delicate balance between memory and presence. Seeing hints of figures in the shadows, feeling the brush of cold air, or hearing distant cries carried by the wind. The town exists as a space where history is not only remembered but subtly lived. Allowing the unseen to intersect with the everyday in ways that are haunting, poignant, and unforgettable. In Rockport, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The rhythmic lapping of waves. The weathered structures. The quiet streets. Where the past continues to whisper across time. Where figures stand watch over the water. And lingering energy create a tapestry of history and mystery. Where the sea, the town, and the unseen coexist in subtle, powerful harmony. Salado in Bell County is a town that captures the charm of Texas with its historic inns, tree-lined streets, and quiet squares. Visitors are drawn to its scenic beauty, but beneath the surface of this picturesque town, a sense of something unseen lingers. At night, the town seems to shift, revealing whispers of its past and the presence of spirits that have yet to rest. The old inns of Salado are central to its mysteries. Their wooden floors creak under the weight of memories. Visitors often report seeing figures moving silently in hallways. These forms appear and vanish without warning, as if caught between the past and present. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation, a quiet tension that makes each corridor and staircase feel alive with unseen activity. Upstairs rooms hold their own secrets. Guests report hearing footsteps when no one else is present. The sound echoing faintly through the hallways. Doors sometimes open slowly, revealing empty rooms. Even the most ordinary spaces take on an unusual energy, leaving visitors with the sense that the town's history is watching closely, never fully revealed. Windows provide glimpses into the unknown. Shadows seem to linger just beyond the glass, observing passers-by, or standing still as if guarding unseen memories. On calm nights, the streetlights cast long reflections that seem to move independently, enhancing the feeling that the town is alive with quiet, patient spirits. These glimpses leave a lingering unease, a reminder that the ordinary can conceal the extraordinary. The town square and its surrounding streets are not exempt from this presence. Even in the open, the sensation of being watched can become palpable. Footsteps echo where none should exist, and the rustle of leaves in the evening breeze carries sounds that seem deliberate, almost communicative. Visitors describe moments when time feels suspended, and every corner holds the possibility of encountering something unseen. Visitors describe moments when time feels suspended, and every corner holds the possibility of encountering something unseen. Historic buildings contribute to the town's unique atmosphere. Old taverns and shops, with their weathered FAA Section 8s and antique interiors, seem to contain the essence of those who lived and worked there decades ago. Patrons at night report hearing faint conversations or the soft murmur of voices in empty rooms, as though the walls themselves retain fragments of life from another era. Some claim to see figures moving through the inns, their appearances fleeting and often peripheral. Shadows shift against candlelight or flickering lamps, creating a sense of movement even when the halls are still. Each encounter leaves an indelible mark on those who experience it. Even the natural spaces around Salado carry a quiet energy. Walkways lined with trees and small gardens seem to respond to the presence of visitors, with the wind and foliage moving in ways that suggest something unseen is nearby. Sounds of distant whispers or gentle footsteps can emerge from the night, creating an environment where the line between the living and the spectral is blurred. The old inns, historic streets, and surrounding areas converge to form a town steeped in layers of memory and mystery. Salado is a place where history is not just remembered but felt, where the echoes of past lives interact with the present in subtle, compelling ways. Visitors often leave with more questions than answers, carrying with them the sense of having glimpsed a world beyond ordinary perception. As the night deepens, the town continues its quiet vigilance. Figures remain unseen yet sensed, shadows linger where light falls, and whispers weave through the still air. Salado's restless spirits do not demand recognition. They exist as quiet witnesses to the passage of time, preserving the essence of a town that has seen generations come and go. By morning, the streets regain their familiar calm. Shops open, and life resumes in its usual rhythm. Yet for those who walked the town after dark, the memory of shadows, whispered footsteps, and unseen observers remains. Salado is a town where the charm of the present is inseparable from the weight of its past. A place where the ordinary is subtly infused with the extraordinary, and where every quiet street holds a story waiting to be discovered. The presence in Salado is patient, never overt, but always perceptible to those willing to notice. To visit Salado is to step into a living narrative, one that blends history, mystery, and the subtle thrill of the unseen. Every corridor, window, and street of Salado tells a story without words. The town's beauty is matched by its intrigue, creating an experience that is as haunting as it is captivating. Those who explore it at night feel a connection to something greater, a whisper of the past woven into the present. The town endures as a place where restless spirits remain, quietly observing, and silently sharing their stories with anyone willing to look and listen. Fredericksburg in Gillespie County carries a. Yet, as night falls, a different character emerges. One woven from memory, history, and shadows that linger long after the sun has set. The cobblestone streets, lined with buildings that have stood for generations, take on a new presence. Visitors often describe seeing figures moving in the quiet streets. They appear at the edges of vision, standing beneath old street lamps or peering from doorways. These forms are fleeting, dissolving into the night when approached, leaving only the feeling that someone has watched from the darkness. The town seems aware of every step, every movement, as though the very stones remember the lives that have passed before. The whispers are another unsettling feature of Fredericksburg at night. Soft voices seem to emerge from empty spaces, speaking in English and German, carrying tones of longing, warning, or memory. They drift along the alleys and courtyards, sometimes fading as quickly as they arrive, other times persisting just long enough to make a visitor pause and listen. There is a rhythm to the whispers, a cadence that is almost musical, yet always tinged with unease. Historic buildings hold their own secrets. Doors swing closed without wind, sometimes trapping visitors within halls that suddenly feel alive. Floorboards creak under no visible weight, and windows reflect shadows that are not part of the present. The old architecture, with its carved wood and stone facades, seems to breathe with a life of its own. The past is never far from sight. Walking through the town, one notices the quiet hum of history in the air. The streets, while familiar by day, shift in tone after dusk. Lamp posts cast elongated shadows that twist and stretch across the buildings, and even the most ordinary alley can feel like the threshold to another time. Every corner holds a memory, every building a story that is only half remembered, half glimpsed. Visitors often experience sensations that defy explanation. A chill runs down the spine when no breeze is present. Subtle touches brush arms as if unseen hands reach from the shadows. Footsteps echo on empty sidewalks. And for a moment, one feels not alone but accompanied by the town itself, moving silently alongside. Fredericksburg at night seems to exist in layers. The present blending with echoes of the past in ways that are both captivating and unnerving. The German heritage of the town adds a distinct atmosphere. Voices in German rise and fade among the English whispers, carrying the cadence of a culture that shaped the town. Music from long-closed halls seems to linger faintly in the air, the notes almost audible, intertwining with the natural sounds of the night. A blend of history and haunting, a reminder that Fredericksburg is a place where memory is tangible and the unseen can touch the living. The unseen can touch the living. Every building has its story. Old inns, taverns, and shops that have remained for centuries hold echoes of those who lived, worked, and passed through. Patrons long gone seem to linger in corners, their presence detected in the sway of a hanging sign or the soft sound of a door closing. Even the smallest details, a shutter rattling in the night, a faint shadow crossing a window, carry the weight of untold tales. Night deepens, and Fredericksburg transforms further. The quiet becomes almost overwhelming, yet it is alive with subtle movement and sound. A figure appears at the edge of a street, pauses, and vanishes. A whisper drifts down an alley, carrying the hint of a conversation from decades ago. The town is patient, watching and waiting, allowing only glimpses of what it contains, leaving visitors with the sense that they have touched a place that exists beyond ordinary perception. Exploring Fredericksburg at night is to move through a living memory. The streets, buildings, and shadows all interact in a way that engages the senses and imagination. It is impossible to walk these paths without feeling the weight of history pressing in from every side, the presence of those who came before never entirely absent. Each step brings a new encounter, each glance a subtle change in perception, as if the town itself guides the visitor through layers of time. The night in Fredericksburg is not frightening in a conventional sense. It is mysterious, immersive, and strangely intimate. Figures appear and disappear, whispers rise and fall. Doors close without wind. And the architecture seems to hum with history. Visitors leave with the awareness that Fredericksburg carries its past in every stone and shadow. That it watches quietly. And that its stories are endless, waiting for those who walk its streets to notice, listen, and remember. Fredericksburg in Gillespie County is more than a town with German heritage. It is a place where history lingers in the dark, where the whispers of the past meet the footsteps of the present. And where shadows hold stories that may never fully be understood. The night reveals a side of the town that is hidden by daylight. A world of subtle hauntings and enduring presence that leaves a lasting impression on anyone who ventures through its quiet, timeless streets. Jefferson's east side is quieter than the bustling streets of its center. Buildings stand with an air of history, some abandoned, some quietly worn by time. The neighborhood seems ordinary in daylight, yet as night falls, a different story emerges. Shadows stretch across empty streets, moving in ways that feel intentional, as though the town itself observes those who wander after dark. Abandoned schools dominate the area, their facades faded and windows dark. Inside, the air carries a chill that does not come from the weather. Visitors often hear faint strains of music drifting through the halls, the melody indistinct yet haunting. The sound is fleeting, appearing and disappearing as though teasing those who listen. Shadows move in corners, sometimes following the contours of the building. Sometimes gliding across hallways. They do not resemble the shapes of those who once occupied the schools. Instead, they seem to exist independently, aware of the presence of the living. Lights flicker inexplicably, bulbs dimming or bursting without cause. Doors creak on old hinges, opening or closing on their own, creating a tension that builds with every step. Some visitors have reported doors locking automatically, leaving them momentarily trapped, the sense of isolation amplified by the vast emptiness around them. In certain rooms, whispers rise with the faint scent of dust and old wood. The voices are soft, often indiscernible, but carry a weight that suggests they are echoes of memories. Visitors feel the atmosphere pressing in, the sensation of being watched while no one is there. Even the most mundane objects seem to move subtly, a chair shifted slightly from its previous place, a book lying open when it had been closed. The effect is cumulative, an invisible hand shaping the environment in ways that cannot be fully explained. The architecture of the east side contributes to its eerie charm. Long corridors and high ceilings create echoes that seem almost sentient. Footsteps taken by visitors are mirrored by sounds that cannot be accounted for. A hallway might appear empty, yet the sound of hurried steps follows, vanishing only when the person stops. Mirrors in some rooms reflect shapes that are not present, fleeting glimpses of figures that disappear the moment one looks directly at them. At night, the streets themselves take on a different character. Streetlights cast long shadows across cracked sidewalks. Abandoned playgrounds sway in the wind, their movement whispering stories of past laughter. Windows in vacant houses seem to hold eyes that watch silently, observing those who dare to wander. Every corner offers the possibility of an encounter, every doorway a threshold between the ordinary and the inexplicable. Visitors often describe a feeling of tension that is both palpable and subtle. It is not threatening, yet impossible to ignore. The east side of Jefferson carries a presence that seems drawn from memory and absence. A lingering impression of lives once lived and moments never forgotten. Sounds, movements, and sensations layer together, creating an environment that engages all senses. Making it impossible to dismiss the experiences as mere imagination. The abandoned schools act as focal points for this energy. Classrooms, now stripped of furniture and equipment, feel alive with the echo of their history. Chalkboards bear the ghost of lessons never erased. Hallways reverberate with the energy of years of passing feet. Some visitors report seeing figures moving past broken windows, fleeting glimpses of forms that vanish when approached. The music that drifts through the corridors seems tied to these apparitions, a haunting accompaniment to their presence. Even the most cautious visitor cannot escape the sense that the East Side has stories of its own. Footsteps echo unexpectedly, whispers respond to silence. And cold air seems to gather in specific rooms, lingering where no draft should exist. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates an immersive experience that draws attention and curiosity, compelling those who witness it to question the boundary between reality and memory. By morning, the neighborhood returns to its quiet, seemingly ordinary state. Sunlight illuminates empty streets and boarded-up windows, erasing the shadows and whispers of the night. Yet the impressions remain. Those who experienced the East Side after dark carry the feeling of presence with them. The subtle suggestion that the town holds layers of unseen history. Jefferson's East Side exists as a place where past and present intersect, where the ordinary can shift into the extraordinary with the setting sun, and where abandoned spaces hold a life that continues beyond the visible. For those willing to explore, Jefferson's East Side offers a glimpse into the unseen. Shadows, music, and whispers combine to create a tapestry of presence that is subtle, immersive, and unforgettable. The neighborhood, with its silent schools and quiet streets, becomes a stage where history and mystery intertwine, leaving visitors with a profound sense of a world just beyond perception, a place where every sound, shadow, and movement is part of a living story waiting to be experienced. Fort Davis in Jeff Davis County sits quietly among rugged mountains, its isolation giving it a unique atmosphere that blends history and mystery. The town rests in a high desert, where the wind moves with a whisper across the rocky terrain, and shadows stretch long under the fading sun. Visitors often feel that the town is larger than it appears, as if the land itself is holding memories of a time long past. Walking along the narrow streets, one notices the stillness that blankets the town. It is a quiet that is not empty but alive with subtle movements. Figures are sometimes glimpsed along trails and pathways at night, moving just beyond clear sight. They vanish when approached, leaving only a faint impression of their presence in the cool night air. The desert wind seems to carry their echoes, brushing past passers-by with icy touches that linger unexpectedly. The history of Fort Davis is woven into every corner of the town. Once a frontier outpost, it was a place where soldiers and settlers crossed paths with hardship and solitude. The stone and adobe buildings that remain today are silent witnesses to that past. Visitors often report hearing soft whispers along empty streets, voices that do not belong to anyone present. The words are indistinct, carried by the wind in a way that suggests memory is embedded in the very fabric of the town. Nightfall intensifies the experience. Trails leading into the surrounding mountains become corridors of shadows. Some see figures moving in these paths, their shapes just on the edge of recognition. Sometimes appearing to pause and watch, then fading into the darkness. The air grows cooler, and an unshakable feeling of being observed permeates the environment. Even those who know the terrain well describe sensations that are difficult to explain. A subtle tug at awareness that something unseen is near. The streets themselves hold stories of solitude and resilience. The adobe walls, wooden facades, and weathered porches seem to absorb the echoes of the past. Doors creak in the wind, steps echo across deserted walkways, and fleeting shapes appear at windows or along alleyways. It is as if the town remembers the lives once lived here and subtly reminds visitors that the past is not entirely gone. These experiences are not threatening, but they create a compelling tension that keeps observers alert and engaged. Fort Davis also offers moments where the natural and supernatural blend seamlessly. The high desert sky reveals stars in patterns that feel eternal, while the wind carries whispers that may be human or perhaps echoes of those who walked these streets long ago. Trails that lead into the hills and rocky outcrops are often walked alone. Yet many feel an unspoken presence, as though the landscape itself is aware of each step. Shadows move in unexpected ways, sometimes appearing alongside travelers before fading into the rocky terrain. Visitors who spend time in the town often recount instances of icy touches while walking alone. It can be a hand brushing an arm, a sudden chill along the spine, or a soft pressure that vanishes in an instant. These sensations are fleeting but memorable, adding to the overall impression that Fort Davis exists in a space where the past interacts subtly with the present. The experience is immersive, creating an awareness of history, memory, and the unknown that lingers long after leaving. The town's history is inseparable from its landscape. Rocky cliffs rise abruptly, trails wind through desert scrub, and the night sky stretches endlessly above. Figures glimpsed along these trails are often described as distant observers, moving silently and purposefully. The combination of natural beauty and subtle spectral presence gives Fort Davis a cinematic quality, where every element of the environment contributes to the sense of mystery, where the town's stories are not just told but experienced. Even in daylight, Fort Davis retains a quiet tension. Shadows from the rugged terrain stretch across streets and trails, sometimes forming shapes that seem almost human. The wind carries sounds that are barely perceptible, distant enough to make one question whether they are real or imagined. These elements combine to create an atmosphere that is both captivating and slightly unnerving, a delicate balance between curiosity and caution that draws visitors into the town's enigmatic story. Fort Davis remains a place where history and mystery intertwine seamlessly. The combination of isolation, rugged landscape, and subtle spectral activity creates an environment that captivates the imagination. Visitors walk through the town aware that the past is not entirely behind them, feeling the presence of those who came before. Hearing whispers carried on the wind, and glimpsing figures that linger just beyond perception. Every step through the streets, along the trails, and beneath the high desert sky reinforces the town's enduring allure. The experience of Fort Davis is one of quiet engagement, a slow unfolding of observation and awareness. Shadows, whispers, and fleeting sensations invite reflection, connecting visitors to the town's layered history and subtle supernatural presence. It is a place where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, where each trail, street, and building carries an invisible weight of memory. The mountains, the desert, and the lingering echoes of the past converge to make Fort Davis not only a location but a journey into history, mystery, and the unseen, leaving an impression that endures long after the final steps are taken. Bandera, nestled in the heart of Texas Hill Country, is a town known for its wide-open landscapes, historic saloons, and the echoes of a storied past. By day, the streets are lively with tourists and locals alike. But as night falls, a different atmosphere settles over the town. Shadows lengthen, the air grows cooler, and the feeling of being watched becomes palpable. It is in these quiet hours that Bandera reveals a side of itself few truly understand. The historic saloons, once filled with laughter, music, and the rhythm of horses on wooden floors, are among the most active sites of unexplained occurrences. Visitors have reported laughter echoing through empty rooms, the kind that seems too lively to be imagined alone. Doors swing open and shut without warning, and the faint scent of tobacco or whiskey lingers in the air long after the last patrons have departed. The atmosphere is heavy with memory, as though the walls themselves retain the energy of those who walked before. Along the deserted streets, figures appear at the edge of vision. Some are glimpsed briefly, hats tipped low, boots catching the moonlight, standing silently along empty roads. Even in the open air, the feeling of being followed is undeniable, as if invisible eyes are tracing every movement. The quiet of the hill country amplifies these sensations, making each creak and rustle resonate with significance. The history of Bandera is interwoven with its spectral inhabitants. Cowboys, cattle drivers, and townspeople from long ago are said to linger where they once lived and worked. Their presence is subtle yet persistent, a whisper of a time when the town was a hub of frontier life. Visitors describe glimpses of figures moving across town squares or through the old boarding houses, always appearing just beyond the edge of perception. The energy is neither threatening nor aggressive, but it is undeniably present. Saloon interiors seem to hold the strongest traces of the past. Patrons have felt sudden chills while passing through, as if a hand brushed their shoulder. Chairs occasionally rock gently as if someone unseen just stood up. Glasses and utensils shift slightly, too easily explained by drafts or settling buildings. These experiences create an eerie yet fascinating environment, reminding visitors that the lives once lived here have left an enduring mark on the town. The surrounding hill country adds its own layer of mystery. On certain nights, the wind carries faint echoes of distant hooves or murmured voices. Shadows move across the landscape in ways that feel deliberate, though no one is present. The combination of natural quiet and the town's lingering energy produces an atmosphere where history and the present coexist in a subtle, almost cinematic way. Visitors who wander the streets after dark often report an unshakable sense of being watched. Some have glimpsed figures on porches or along fences, motionless, observing without engagement. Others notice objects slightly out of place when returning to familiar sights, small rearrangements that defy simple explanation. Even the most skeptical find themselves pausing, listening, sensing the town's unseen guardians as they continue their quiet vigil. Bandera's unique blend of history and legend makes every visit compelling. The town embodies the spirit of the American frontier, where every building, street, and open field holds a story waiting to be felt. Ghostly cowboys, laughing saloons, and shifting shadows are not simply stories to frighten tourists, they are the echoes of a community that once thrived under harsh skies and demanding terrain. These spirits are reminders of lives lived with courage, hard work, and a connection to the land that endures beyond mortality. The night amplifies every sound and shadow, making the ordinary seem extraordinary. A breeze moving through the trees can become the approach of someone unseen. The rhythmic tapping of boots on old wooden floors echoes through empty halls, reminding visitors that Bandera's past is never far away. Each step taken along deserted streets, each glance toward an old building, carries the possibility of encountering what has been left behind, yet is never fully gone. By the time dawn arrives, the town resumes its daily life. Morning light washes over the streets, and the energy of the living reclaims the air. Yet for those who walk the town after dark, the memory of unseen figures, laughter from empty saloons, and the sensation of being observed lingers. A town where the past and present coexist, a town where history is tangible, almost visible, in the quiet moments of night. The spirit of Bandera is patient and subtle, never demanding attention but always present. Ghostly cowboys and unseen observers remind visitors that the town's charm is inseparable from its mysteries. To wander its streets, step into its saloons, or stroll along its roads after dark is to become part of a living history. Bandera is a place where the ordinary and the supernatural intersect, leaving a lasting impression on all who venture into its quiet, enigmatic nights. The town endures as both a destination and a story. Each saloon, street, and open field carries the resonance of those who came before. Visitors leave with more than memories, they leave with a sense of connection to a past that is still very much present, woven into the fabric of Bandera's hill country. Here, every shadow has a story, and every whisper is a reminder that the frontier spirit never truly fades. Jefferson in Harrison County has a quiet charm by day. But the south side of town carries a different presence once night falls. Historic homes line the streets, their aged facades hinting at long-forgotten stories. The paint peels from woodwork, and the windows reflect more than just the moonlight. Shadows linger in corners, and the air seems heavier, as if the houses themselves remember what has passed within their walls. Visitors often notice figures appearing in windows. At first, they seem like reflections or trickery of the light, but a closer look reveals shapes that move independently. They stand silently, observing, only to vanish when approached. The windows become thresholds between the present and the past, where the unseen continues to exist alongside the living. Inside the homes, the atmosphere grows more unsettling. Rooms once full of life now stand abandoned. Yet the echoes of the past remain. Visitors report hearing soft crying, carried through empty halls as if the walls themselves are mourning. The sound rises and falls unpredictably, creating a sense of both sadness and tension. Doors are another source of unease. As darkness settles, some visitors find them locking automatically, trapping them within rooms that are otherwise silent. The mechanism seems invisible, and the sensation of being contained amplifies the awareness of the home's history. These moments are brief yet potent, leaving a lasting impression on anyone who has experienced them. Walking the south side streets at night, one senses a presence beyond ordinary perception. Shadows stretch across the pavement, moving independently of the moonlight. The architecture, once simply beautiful, now appears as a silent witness to events long past. Every porch, every window, and every weathered door seems to hold a story, waiting to reveal itself to those who notice the subtle signs. The town's history seeps into the air. Generations of families have lived, loved, and passed within these homes. And some of that energy lingers. It is not malevolent in a conventional sense, but it is persistent and observant. Whispers of past lives seem to ride the wind. And visitors sometimes catch fragments of conversations that no longer exist. The feeling is less of fear and more of profound awareness that the past is never truly gone. Certain houses stand out more than others. Their windows glint unnaturally in the night, hinting at forms just beyond recognition. The cry of a child or the soft sobbing of a figure can emerge from upstairs rooms that have been empty for decades. It is impossible to pinpoint the source. And yet the sensation is undeniable. Each sound, each movement, feels deliberate, as if the house itself guides the experience of those who enter. The streets themselves seem to change as darkness deepens. Moonlight casts elongated shadows that twist and sway along sidewalks. Wind carries faint echoes of footsteps, sometimes matching the rhythm of the observer, other times moving contrary to expectation. The south side of Jefferson becomes a landscape where the ordinary transforms into the mysterious, and every corner offers the possibility of encountering the unseen. Even familiar homes can appear different at night. Porches, once welcoming, now suggest silent watchers. The rustle of leaves outside a window may mask the approach of a figure who exists in another time. Visitors often feel a presence near them, subtle and almost imperceptible, like the soft brush of air across the skin. These sensations heighten the sense of connection between the living and the lingering spirits of the past. The south side of Jefferson is not a place of constant terror, but of quiet tension and layered history. Figures appear and vanish. Cries echo through empty rooms, and doors close of their own accord. Each of these experiences reinforces the feeling that the town remembers and watches, holding stories that are both personal and communal. Visitors leave with an awareness that their perception of reality has shifted, even slightly, touched by a presence that is persistent and patient. Historic homes, silent streets, and subtle movements create a cinematic atmosphere. A space where time overlaps, where past and present coexist in moments that are fleeting yet memorable. It is a place that invites exploration, reflection, and caution, a reminder that history is alive in ways that cannot always be seen or explained. Night deepens, and the south side of Jefferson becomes an almost otherworldly place. Shadows drift along walls, figures appear in windows, and whispers rise from empty rooms. Doors lock themselves without warning, emphasizing the thin line between what is tangible and what is not. The air feels thick with memory, every step guided by forces unseen yet intimately tied to the history of the town. Walking these streets or entering these homes is to enter a narrative that stretches across generations. The figures, cries, and mysterious movements are not merely stories, but experiences, encounters that connect visitors to the enduring presence of the past. Jefferson's South Side is a town alive with memory, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary under the cloak of darkness. Visitors leave with impressions that linger. The quiet streets, the historic homes, and the subtle, inexplicable phenomena create a sense of depth and continuity. The town is patient, allowing only glimpses of its secrets, and those who notice may find themselves forever changed. Jefferson in Harrison County is a place where shadows remember. Cries echo across time, and doors hold the power to trap more than just body asa, they hold fragments of history, waiting to be felt, heard, and acknowledged. Terrell sits quietly in Kaufman County, its streets lined with buildings that carry the weight of generations. At first glance, the town appears ordinary, a collection of aged structures and familiar storefronts. Yet, as dusk settles and shadows stretch across the pavement, a different reality begins to emerge. Visitors often speak of shadows moving along the old streets, shapes that seem to glide silently between lamp posts and alleyways. They do not belong to anyone present, yet their presence is undeniable. The air grows colder, heavier, as though the town itself exhales in anticipation of unseen activity. Every step becomes amplified, the crunch of gravel or the tapping of heels echoing in ways that suggest others walk alongside, just out of view. Some hear footsteps behind them, the pace not matching their own. Turning quickly reveals empty streets, yet the sensation of being followed lingers. The sound sometimes appears faint, almost hesitant, other times sharp and clear. Each step a reminder that the town harbors more than simple history. Windows in old buildings seem to reflect movement that disappears when observed directly. A trick of the light or something far stranger. Doors are another mystery. Visitors report them locking and unlocking without cause, swinging open with no wind or human influence. A heavy wooden door might suddenly click shut, trapping a visitor for moments that feel far longer. Other doors swing gently as if inviting passage, yet the rooms beyond remain empty, the stillness broken only by the subtle creak of hinges and the quiet thrum of the town at night. Terrell's architecture contributes to the unease. Narrow alleyways and low-hanging eaves create shadows that pool and stretch across pathways. The town square, normally a place of gathering and light, takes on a new character as night falls. Lamplight flickers across brick and stone, casting figures in motion that vanish as soon as they are seen. The combination of sound, shadow, and suggestion builds a tension that is both compelling and unnerving. Along the edges of the town, buildings abandoned for decades hold their own secrets. The remains of old homes and shuttered shops exude a quiet presence. Steps taken inside are met with echoes that do not match the visitor's movements. Faint whispers, often unintelligible, seem to rise from corners where dust and shadow meet. Some who linger report a sensation of unseen eyes, observing from places that were once rooms full of life. Night deepens, and Terrell's streets seem to breathe. The wind carries sounds that might be ordinary, the rustle of leaves or the whistle of a passing train, but are accompanied by subtle, almost imperceptible presences. Some describe the feeling of being brushed past by a cold hand or an invisible figure. Fleeting sensations that vanish as quickly as they appear. The town's energy feels alive, reactive, as though it remembers each person who has walked its paths and responds in kind. Even familiar landmarks take on an eerie quality. The old courthouse, the former railway station, and vacant storefronts. All seem to shift subtly when observed, lines and shadows bending in ways that defy logic. Windows offer glimpses of figures standing silently, watching from within, only to disappear when approached. Footsteps echo down hallways that have been empty for years. And floors creak under weight that no living person carries. Local lore speaks of the town's history, of lives intertwined with tragedy and change. Each story, each record of past events, seems to leave an imprint, a memory that lingers in the structures themselves. Visitors cannot help but feel that the town is more than a collection of buildings and streets. It is a repository of presence, a place where time layers itself, and echoes of the past interact with the present. Some nights, the most ordinary moments are transformed. A quiet stroll down a deserted street becomes a journey into the unseen. The flicker of lamplight, the soft whisper of wind through empty branches. All take on new meaning. Torella's ordinary corners hide extraordinary experiences, drawing those who are observant or brave into its subtle mysteries. By morning, the town seems ordinary once more. Sunlight warms brick and asphalt, casting long shadows in a familiar, mundane pattern. The echoes of night vanish, leaving only memory and the faint impression of something felt but unseen. Yet, those who have walked Terrell after dark carry the awareness that the town holds layers invisible to the casual eye, a quiet world where shadows move, footsteps follow, and doors open to memories that refuse to fade. Terrell in Kaufman County stands as a testament to the subtle power of place. Shadows, sounds, and sensations combine to create an atmosphere that engages every sense. Reminding visitors that history is not only recorded in books or plaques, but lived in every creaking floorboard, every shifting shadow, and every whisper that rises from the streets. The town remains ordinary by day, yet transformed by night, offering a glimpse into a hidden world that waits for those willing to walk its streets and witness the quiet, spectral presence that lingers there. Marfa in the heart of West Texas sits quietly under vast desert skies. Downtown the streets stretch wide lined with historic buildings, small galleries and neon signs. At night the town takes on a different character. The lights illuminate more than the street's shadows flicker along walls and alleyways, moving in ways that seem just beyond explanation. Visitors walking through the empty streets often feel a presence, a subtle awareness of being watched. The wind carries faint sounds that are not entirely natural, whispers that drift from doorways, cracks in buildings, and darkened corners. Some describe icy touches along their arms or shoulders, fleeting but sharp enough to make them pause. There is a sensation in Marfa that the ordinary world overlaps with something else, a layer of reality where the past, memory, and the unexplained intersect. A sensation in Marfa that the ordinary world overlaps with something else, a layer of reality where the past, memory, and the unexplained intersect. The neon glow of downtown creates a surreal atmosphere. Colors bleed across sidewalks and walls, painting everything in sharp contrasts and soft edges. Figures are sometimes seen beneath these lights, standing in places where no one should be. They vanish when approached, leaving only a subtle chill in the air. It is not frightening in a traditional sense, but the experience leaves a deep impression, a sense that the town holds more than it shows. Buildings in Marfa carry stories. Old storefronts and hotels, once busy with travelers, now stand quiet and watchful. Doors creak in the night, even when unoccupied. Footsteps echo along wooden floors or empty streets, and fleeting shadows appear in windows, reflecting movement that is not there. Visitors often describe a sense of the town itself observing, as if the streets remember those who walked them long ago. The night deepens, and the desert beyond the town seems to press close. Lights from windows and neon signs cut sharply into the darkness, revealing glimpses of shapes in the distance. Some have reported seeing figures crossing streets at impossible angles or vanishing suddenly into the air. The sensation of being watched intensifies. Even when standing in the middle of a quiet intersection, the feeling persists, a subtle pressure that draws the mind toward awareness and reflection. Inside some of the historic buildings, the experience continues. Rooms that are empty for years seem to hold whispers, faint sounds that might be the echoes of conversations long past. Cold spots appear without warning, a chill that sinks deep into the body and raises hairs on the back of the neck. Some guests have felt hands brush lightly across their skin, or noticed objects shift slightly when no one is near. These phenomena are quiet, subtle, yet unmistakably present, reinforcing the town's enigmatic nature. Downtown Marfa offers a cinematic quality at night. Neon signs reflect in dusty windows, shadows stretch across brick and adobe, and the interplay of light and darkness creates a living painting. Shadows stretch across brick and adobe, and the interplay of light and darkness creates a living painting. Figures, whispers, and cold touches punctuate this setting, making the ordinary extraordinary. Every step taken along the sidewalks, every glance into darkened corners, reinforces the sense that the town is alive with unseen history. The desert wind carries more than sound. It seems to move memory through the streets, stirring echoes of the past. A figure glimpsed in the distance might be a visitor from long ago, or perhaps a shadow cast by the architecture itself. Sounds that resemble footsteps, murmured words, or distant laughter drift across the streets, sometimes approaching and retreating in ways that defy natural explanation. The experience is subtle yet persistent, creating a deep, lingering impression on those who spend time in the town. Visitors often describe a rhythm to their experiences, a pattern of subtle encounters and sensations that seem woven into the fabric of Marfa. A pattern of subtle encounters and sensations that seem woven into the fabric of Marfa. Seem woven into the fabric of Marfa. Cold touches, whispers, fleeting figures, and moving shadows combine to form a narrative that is never fully seen but strongly felt. A narrative that is never fully seen but strongly felt. But strongly felt. The town exists simultaneously as a physical place and a space where history, memory, and mystery intertwine. And a space where history, memory, and mystery intertwine. By the early hours of the night, the town becomes even quieter. The neon lights flicker, and streets are deserted. Figures appear along sidewalks or vanish at the edges of buildings. Footsteps echo along empty streets, and whispers drift from doorways long closed. There is a sense of continuity, as if the town has always held these presences and always will. Marfa downtown is a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary meet. Neon lights, quiet streets, and historic buildings combine to form a stage for subtle, mysterious phenomena. Visitors may feel watched, hear whispers, encounter cold touches, or glimpse figures that vanish as quickly as they appear. It is a town that invites reflection, curiosity, and an awareness of the unseen, leaving each person who walks its streets with a deep, lasting impression of mystery and wonder. Rusk, in the heart of East Texas, carries the quiet weight of history in its old quarter. The streets, once alive with commerce and the rhythm of trains, now sit in stillness as night falls. The fading light casts long shadows across brick buildings and weathered wooden sidewalks, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. In this silence, the past does not remain at rest. The abandoned stores along Main Street hold remnants of lives that once animated them. Dust settles on display windows, but within, a presence lingers. Figures drift silently through empty aisles, their movements slow and deliberate, as if tracing memories from decades past. Visitors describe glimpses of shapes at the edges of vision, disappearing when approached. The air is heavy with the feeling of being watched, an invisible audience observing every step. The railroad that cuts through the town carries echoes of a different era. Steam engines and freight cars are long gone, yet the tracks seem to hum with lingering energy. At night, soft cries can be heard, carried by the wind along the rails. Some feel compelled to follow the sound, only to find the tracks empty, the cries fading into the darkness. Alleyways between the old buildings are especially alive with spectral activity. Figures appear without warning, lingering in corners, watching silently. Their presence is subtle yet undeniable, a disturbance in the still air. The shadows in these alleys stretch unnaturally, and a chill often follows, brushing across the skin as if carried by unseen hands. Even the most skeptical visitors find themselves pausing, glancing over their shoulders at movements they cannot explain. Inside the abandoned buildings, the phenomena grow more intimate. Doors swing and lock on their own, creating an eerie rhythm that echoes through empty halls. Visitors have felt the faint pressure of invisible hands on their shoulders or arms, gentle yet persistent. The sense of being accompanied by someone unseen is common, a presence that observes without threatening, reminding all who enter that the past is never entirely gone. The architecture of Ruska's old quarter amplifies these experiences. Narrow streets and closely spaced buildings create corridors of shadow and light, turning every flicker of movement into a possible encounter. The wooden floors creak under the weight of nothing, while distant thuds and murmurs suggest activity where none exists. Each corner, each doorway, seems to hold a story waiting to be witnessed, a fragment of the town's forgotten past that refuses to stay buried. Visitors walking the streets at night often report the sensation of being followed. Even in the open, the feeling persists, as if unseen eyes track each step. Small details shift when attention wanders an object slightly out of place, a shadow where none should be, a whisper carried on the breeze. The ordinary world feels uncertain, overlaid with the persistence of memory and energy from lives that once thrived here. The experience of Rusk's old quarter is not violent or aggressive, but deeply atmospheric. The town seems to breathe with the remnants of human presence, each night layering new encounters upon the old. The railroad, the alleyways, and the abandoned stores become stages for subtle interactions between the living and the unseen. Even the quietest moments hold the potential for discovery, a fleeting sense that the past has reached through the veil to touch the present. The old quarter tells its story not with words, but through sensation and sight. Visitors often speak of glimpsing figures just beyond view, of hearing faint cries echoing through empty halls, and of doors that respond without hands. These experiences are immersive, leaving a lasting impression long after one has departed. The town becomes a living memory, where the boundary between history and the present blurs. As dawn breaks, Rusk reclaims its streets with the warmth of sunlight. The shadows retreat, and the sounds of the day replace the quiet whispers of the night. Yet for those who wandered the old quarter after dark, the experience lingers. Shapes, sounds, and sensations remain vivid, a reminder that the town's history is alive and present. The streets and buildings hold on to their stories, sharing them with anyone willing to walk the quiet paths and notice what others overlook. Ruska's old quarter is a place of subtle mystery, a town where the ordinary meets the supernatural in a seamless dance. Figures drift silently, whispers carry on the wind, and doors respond without hands. Every corner, every shadow, and every empty aisle of the abandoned stores offers a glimpse into a past that continues to linger. Visitors leave with more than memories, they carry a sense of connection to the lives that shaped this town, and to the restless spirits who refuse to be forgotten. In the quiet of the night, Rusk speaks in the language of its ghosts. The railroad hums with invisible activity. Alleyways hold watchers in the darkness. And abandoned buildings reveal the persistence of memory. For those who listen, the town offers a story that is both haunting and beautiful. A testament to the enduring presence of those who came before. Ruska's old quarter is more than a place on a mappa, it is a living reminder that history is not always silent, and that some spirits never truly rest. Alpine's west side is a landscape of quiet deserts and rolling hills. A place where the sun scorches the earth by day and the shadows stretch endlessly at night. The terrain feels vast and isolated, yet there is an undercurrent of presence that many cannot explain. Figures sometimes appear near the desert hills, their shapes fleeting, almost blending with the landscape, yet undeniably there. Visitors often speak of whispers that travel across the sand. The voices are soft, carried on the wind, too faint to understand, but impossible to ignore. They seem to come from everywhere at once, echoing off the hills and settling into the night air. The sound is at once alluring and unsettling. A reminder that the West Side holds secrets that are not meant to be uncovered easily. The isolation of the desert amplifies every sound. The crunch of footsteps on sand seems louder, heavier, and yet some visitors hear footsteps that do not belong to them. These echoes move independently, sometimes matching their own pace, sometimes advancing ahead, only to vanish as quickly as they appeared. The feeling of being observed is constant, subtle but persistent, creating a tension that hangs over the landscape like a thin veil. Some report icy touches on arms and shoulders. A visitor will feel a sudden chill, as if a hand has brushed past them, though no one else is in sight. The sensation is brief, yet its memory lingers, leaving the skin tingling and the mind questioning reality. These fleeting contacts heighten the sense of vulnerability and the knowledge that Alpine's west side is not empty, even when it appears so. Buildings scattered across the area add another layer of unease. Abandoned or still in use, they possess a quality of quiet menace. Doors lock without warning, catching visitors unaware and trapping them within or preventing entry. The mechanisms seem beyond human control, as if the structures themselves are aware of the people who enter. Each locked door creates a small moment of fear, a reminder that the landscape is not passive, and that the desert holds authority over its dwellers and explorers. Night deepens, and the desert transforms. The hills shift in the moonlight, shadows stretching unnaturally, creating shapes that suggest movement where there is none. Figures seem to appear along ridges, lingering in the periphery of vision, vanishing when approached. The stillness is deceptive, it masks activity that is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet undeniably present. Every gust of wind, every faint echo seems purposeful, as though the desert is aware of those who intrude upon it. Visitors often notice the silence between sounds, the heavy pauses that feel almost like a presence holding its breath. Even when alone, the desert gives the impression that it is never empty. The west side of Alpine is a place where time seems to move differently, where the boundaries between the living and the unseen blur, and where every moment is intensified by the sense that something watches and waits. The terrain itself becomes a participant in the experience. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the sand, and light behaves strangely, casting glimmers in places that defy expectation. The desert seems alive, responding to the presence of humans in subtle ways, guiding attention to areas that might otherwise go unnoticed. Exploring buildings along the west side is equally unsettling. Doors may lock or open without explanation. Windows reveal fleeting shapes at the edges of vision. Rooms that should be empty hold a sense of weight, as if memories or presences linger in the corners, waiting to be acknowledged. Each step inside these structures reinforces the idea that Alpine is a place where the ordinary becomes extraordinary when night falls. The combination of open desert and confined spaces creates a contrast that heightens unease. Out in the hills, the vast emptiness leaves visitors exposed, yet figures appear without warning. Within buildings, the enclosed spaces carry tension through every creak, draft, and shadow. The desert outside and the architecture within share a sense of awareness, guiding the experience in ways that are subtle, persistent, and impossible to ignore. Every encounter is fleeting yet memorable. Figures appear and vanish, whispers echo across the sand, and icy touches remind visitors that they are not alone. Doors locking themselves create moments of sudden awareness, emphasizing the thin line between safety and vulnerability. These elements together form an environment that is immersive and unforgettable. A landscape that feels both beautiful and haunted. Alpine's west side is a place of layered experience. The hills, sand, and buildings work in concert. to create an atmosphere that is cinematic and vivid. Each shadow and sound tells a story, even if the story is impossible to fully grasp. Visitors emerge from the desert with heightened senses, an awareness of the unseen, and a lingering impression that the land itself carries memories and presences that will not easily let go. The desert wind carries both comfort and caution. Figures appear near the hills, whispers drift across the sand. Whispers drift across the sand, and icy touches remind explorers of the presence of the unseen. Icy touches remind explorers of the presence of the unseen. Buildings lock without warning, reinforcing the idea that Alpinia's west side is a landscape governed by forces beyond ordinary understanding. Time stretches, moments are intensified, and every experience leaves a lasting imprint. Every experience leaves a lasting imprint. In the end, the west side of Alpine is a place where isolation is coupled with the uncanny. Figures glide through the desert. Whispers travel through the night air. And the landscape itself seems aware of all who venture there. Visitors leave changed, their perceptions sharpened, their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered, knowing they have encountered a space where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where the desert watches, waits, and remembers. Their sense of reality altered. Luckenbach lies quietly in the eastern corner, its weathered buildings and wooden porches steeped in history. The town carries an energy that seems to linger long after the sun has set, a presence both inviting and unsettling. By day, visitors walk along familiar paths, surrounded by rustic charm and the echoes of music that once filled the air. By night, a different atmosphere emerges, one where sound, shadow, and sensation weave together into an experience beyond the ordinary. Those who wander through the town after dusk often speak of hearing instruments played by no one. Faint strumming of guitars drifts from empty porches. Harmonicas whisper melodies across deserted streets. And the soft beat of drums seems to come from a hall long closed. The music is alive yet intangible, wrapping around visitors with a sense of warmth and eeriness at the same time. Each note lingers in the air, fading slowly, leaving a feeling that the past is performing just out of sight. Doors in Luckenbach have a mind of their own. Wooden panels swing closed without wind, locks click in moments when no one is near. Gates appear to resist or invite passage at will. Visitors often pause, unsure whether to step inside or continue along the quiet paths. Aware that the town has its own rhythm and timing. Even the most ordinary entryways seem to carry an expectation, a subtle awareness that they are more than simple structures. Explorers report sensations that cannot be explained by wind or architecture. Cold hands brush shoulders when no one is present, fleeting touches that send a shiver down the spine. Steps echo on porches, yet no footsteps accompany them. A chair may rock gently on its own, a lantern flicker as if responding to an unseen breath. The town communicates not through sight alone, but through the senses, drawing those who linger into a heightened awareness of the unseen. The history of Luckenbach contributes to its atmosphere. Each building tells a story, every corner holds memory, and the town itself seems to recall each moment as though it were present once more. Visitors become aware that they are moving through layers of time, where music, sound, and shadow intermingle. Night brings the most profound experiences. The air grows cooler, carrying the faint scent of aged wood and the distant echo of laughter. Shadows stretch across streets and alleys, pooling in corners or drifting along walls. The music grows more distinct, sometimes harmonizing with the wind, at other times cutting sharply through the quiet. Observers often pause, listening as notes rise and fall, feeling the rhythm without ever seeing the musicians who create it. Even familiar locations take on new significance after dark. Porches, halls, and barns that appear still by day seem to pulse with unseen activity. Visitors may enter a building and feel a presence that guides or observes them. A subtle pressure or cold spot that shifts as they move. The town encourages exploration, yet always reminds that there are boundaries unseen. Experiences that cannot be fully understood. Luckenbach's charm lies not only in its rustic beauty but also in its capacity to blur the line between reality and the unseen. Shadows move independently of their sources, musical notes persist without performers, and doors and objects respond in ways that challenge expectation. The town becomes a living entity, one that engages every sense and invites those who enter to witness a reality layered with history, mystery, and the echo of lives once fully present. By the early hours of morning, the town returns to quiet. Music fades, shadows settle, and the air warms with the first light of day. Visitors leave carrying impressions that linger far beyond their time in Luckenbach. The experiences are subtle, almost ephemeral, yet impossible to forget. The town holds its secrets carefully, offering glimpses of the unseen to those who venture with awareness, curiosity, and respect for its hidden rhythms. Luckenbach in the east corner remains a testament to the enduring presence of history and memory. Ghostly music, unseen figures, and inexplicable sensations combine to create an atmosphere both enchanting and unnerving. It is a place where the ordinary and extraordinary coexist, where visitors can experience the lingering echoes of those who came before. And where every step, note, and shadow carries a story waiting to be felt and remembered. Even in the light of day, the sense of otherness persists. Buildings retain the weight of invisible audiences. Streets echo with faint harmonies. The town continues to pulse with life that is not entirely visible. Luckenbach invites observation and awareness, providing an experience that is at once historical, mysterious, and deeply atmospheric. offering a rare glimpse into a world where the past lingers and the unseen continues to play. The town teaches that presence is not always defined by what can be seen. It is felt in sound, in temperature, in movement that defies expectation. Each visitor leaves with a sense of having walked through more than a town, having entered a space where history, memory, and the spectral coexist. Luckenbach stands quietly, patiently, offering its music and mystery to those who seek to listen, to feel, and to witness the unseen that continues to inhabit its streets. Salado stretches quietly along South Main, a town where history lingers in every brick and wooden beam. The streets are lined with historic inns, their FAA section aids welcoming during the day yet taking on a different character at night. As darkness falls, the atmosphere changes. Shadows lengthen across sidewalks and into the interiors of these aged buildings, hinting at stories that time has not fully revealed. Inside the inns, the air is thick with memory. Visitors often report seeing figures moving just beyond the edge of vision. Glimpses of silhouettes that vanish when approached. Footsteps echo along hallways long emptied of guests, carrying a rhythm that seems almost deliberate. The sounds are faint at first, easy to dismiss, but persist and grow more insistent as the night deepens. Doors in these historic inns often behave strangely. They lock at night without warning, sometimes leaving guests unsure if they have the key or if the lock has moved on its own. The sensation is disorienting, a subtle reminder that these spaces are not just physical, but filled with lingering presences. Each hallway, room, and stairwell seems alive with whispers of the past, waiting to reveal their stories to those who are observant enough to notice. The architecture itself adds to the ambience. Candles flicker in corners, casting shadows that stretch and twist along walls. Windows frame the quiet streets outside, yet the world beyond seems different at night, as if the town itself is holding its breath. Visitors report more than sounds. Cold drafts appear in rooms without ventilation, brushing against skin and causing shivers. Furniture sometimes shifts imperceptibly, leaving the impression that someone or something has moved it. The feeling is subtle, yet undeniable, creating a tension that threads through the night like a hidden pulse. The history of Salado adds weight to these experiences. Inns that have stood for generations hold memories of travelers, locals, and events long forgotten. These memories seem to imprint on the spaces themselves, manifesting in glimpses of figures in period attire or fleeting impressions of people who once passed through the hallways. There is a sense that the past and present coexist here, interwoven in ways that defy ordinary understanding. At the edges of perception, figures appear. They may linger in hallways or peer from doorways, always just beyond clear sight. Guests feel the sensation of being observed, a gentle awareness that the building is watching, responding, or perhaps remembering. Shadows move independently of light, stretching across walls and floors, leaving impressions that are difficult to explain. The night deepens, and the sounds intensify. Soft footsteps approach, pause, and recede. Whispers drift through rooms, forming patterns that feel almost like words without meaning. Every creak, every gust of cold air, every shifting shadow contributes to a sense of the uncanny. A reminder that Salado's historic inns are more than relics of architecture, they are living witnesses to history, and perhaps, to something beyond the ordinary. Even in moments of stillness, there is movement. Shadows drift across corners where no one should be. And the echo of past footsteps follows down hallways. Guests may feel a presence near them, sensed rather than seen. As though the history of the inn is breathing alongside them. It is a quiet tension, subtle and persistent, that marks Salado as a place where the veil between the ordinary and the extraordinary is thin. Visitors often describe a rhythm to their experiences, a flow of sensation that mirrors the structure of the buildings themselves. Cold spots, fleeting figures, whispering sounds, and shifting objects all combine into a narrative that is felt more than understood. There is a sense of continuity, as if every night repeats patterns laid down by generations before, a layered presence that is both protective and haunting. By the early hours of the night, the inn seemed to settle into a deeper quiet, yet the awareness of unseen eyes remains. Hallways are empty, but footsteps continue. Doors are shut, yet the impression of movement lingers. Shadows persist in corners and across floors, leaving a memory of motion that cannot be explained. Each creak, each whisper, each cold breeze reinforces the town's enigmatic presence. Salado on South Main is a place where history, memory, and mystery converge. Its historic inns are not just buildings, they are vessels of lingering presence, holding echoes of lives once lived. Figures appear, footsteps echo, doors lock, and shadows move in ways that defy simple explanation. Visitors leave with impressions that linger, a sense of having touched a space where the past is alive, watching, and quietly interacting with the present. The night in Salado is a cinematic experience. Every corner of an inn, every stretch of hallway, every flicker of light contributes to a narrative that is both subtle and unforgettable. Guests walk through spaces that feel alive with history, with presence, and with a quiet tension that is palpable. It is a town where the ordinary world overlaps with the extraordinary, leaving each visitor with a lasting sense of awe, wonder, and a touch of unease. Salado invites observation, reflection, and careful attention. It is a place where shadows linger, whispers carry. And history is not confined to books or plaques. The inns along South Main serve as gateways to this experience, offering glimpses of the unseen, moments of subtle interaction, and a persistent feeling that the town itself remembers every footstep, every voice, and every presence that passes through. Fredericksburg's old streets hold a quiet charm by day, lined with centuries-old buildings, cobblestone pathways, and historic shops. The atmosphere shifts as night falls, the town takes on a hushed, almost expectant energy, as though the shadows themselves are watching. Figures appear in alleyways, moving with a purpose that seems disconnected from the living world. They linger in the corners of vision, only to vanish when approached, leaving a chilling emptiness in their place. Visitors walking the streets at night often sense the presence of someone nearby, though no one is there. The air grows thick and cold, carrying faint whispers that call out names. The sound is soft, almost carried on the wind, yet it is insistent enough to make hearts race and heads turn. Footsteps echo down empty alleys, following, guiding, or perhaps observing. Each sound is amplified by the narrow streets and old walls, giving the impression of a town alive with hidden activity. Doors along the old streets have been reported to lock automatically as darkness spreads. The mechanism clicks shut without warning, sometimes while a visitor stands nearby. Windows reflect shapes that are not the observer, and shadows seem to stretch unnaturally, as if reaching out from the past. Every corner of the old street seems to hold a story waiting to be discovered, a presence lingering just beyond comprehension. The architecture of Fredericksburg amplifies these experiences. Buildings stand close together, creating corridors of shadow and light. Twist and turn unpredictably. Alleyways narrow suddenly, forcing attention to the unseen and the unexpected. Forcing attention to the unseen and the unexpected. The texture of old stone and weathered wood carries an echo, giving life to sounds that might otherwise go unnoticed. Giving life to sounds that might otherwise go unnoticed. Even the faintest murmur, the softest creak, or a fleeting shadow becomes a message from a world that exists alongside the living. A world that exists alongside the living. Walking the streets after dark, visitors often report fleeting glimpses of figures that disappear when approached. The shapes are not threatening, but their presence is undeniable. They move with deliberate purpose, tracing routes that seem familiar, as though following paths known only to the past. There is an uncanny sense of continuity, that the people of Fredericksburg's history are still here, woven into the very fabric of the town. Whispers float through the air in quiet moments, carrying the impression of names long forgotten. Sometimes the sounds are coherent, sometimes just the suggestion of speech. They drift through empty streets, slip under doors, and echo from walls. The effect is disorienting, creating a sensation that the town itself is alive, remembering, and responding. Even the most skeptical visitor cannot entirely dismiss the feeling of being observed by something unseen. Alleyways hold a particular intensity. Figures emerge from the darkness with movements too fluid to be fully human, appearing and disappearing in seconds. The air grows colder, pressing in on the skin, and footsteps that do not belong to anyone visible echo along the cobblestones. The senses heighten in response to these small disturbances, creating an awareness that every sound, every shadow, and every movement may be significant. The old streets also carry the weight of history in their silence. Buildings that once housed bustling shops, inns, and homes now stand quiet. Inns and homes now stand quiet, yet their walls resonate with echoes of past lives. Visitors report that even when alone, the sense of being accompanied is strong. The unseen presence follows along narrow streets, pauses at corners, and retreats into darkness, leaving only the memory of its passage. Windows in the historic building sometimes reflect shapes that are not visible in the street. A fleeting figure at the edge of sight, a shadow stretching across the floor, or a movement that seems impossible can all be observed in reflections. These glimpses are subtle, yet they leave a lasting impression. The interplay of light, shadow, and reflection creates a constantly shifting environment, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Even the simplest walk down the old streets becomes an experience layered with tension and curiosity. Every creak, every whisper, and every shadow invites exploration and imagination. Fredericksburg transforms at night, revealing a dimension of itself hidden from the day. The atmosphere is immersive, allowing visitors to feel the weight of the past pressing lightly on the present. As dawn approaches, the old streets regain their calm. Shadows retreat, whispers fade, and the air warms with the light of morning. The town holds on to its stories, and for those who have witnessed them, Fredericksburg becomes a place where history is alive, and where the past continues to reach out to the present. The figures, the sounds, and the presence of the unseen remain vivid. Yet for those who have walked Fredericksburg's streets after dark, the memories linger. The old streets of Fredericksburg are not merely a relic of time, but a living testament to the lives that once moved through them. Figures drift silently in alleyways, whispers call out names. And doors respond without hands. Shadows stretch. Reflections reveal the impossible. And the unseen presence remains constant. Visitors leave with more than memories. They carry a connection to a town where the past and present coexist. And where the stories of those who came before continue to linger in every corner. At night, Fredericksburg's old streets tell their own stories. Every step along the cobblestones, every glance down an alleyway. Every glance down an alleyway, and every flicker of shadow offers a glimpse into a hidden world. Fredericksburg is a place where the quiet is never empty, and where the unseen watches. With patience and persistence, inviting all who walk its streets. The old district of Jefferson is a place where history lingers heavily in the air, a corner of the city where time seems to slow and the past refuses to fade. Narrow streets wind between aged buildings, their facades weathered by decades of sun, rain, and neglect. The architecture is beautiful, yet there is an unmistakable heaviness to the place, a sense that the walls have absorbed the many lives that passed through them. As night falls, shadows drift silently along the streets. They move without sound, slipping between alleyways and doorways as if guided by an unseen hand. Visitors walking through the district often feel eyes upon them, though no one appears. The darkness is not merely the absence of light, it is a presence, subtle yet persistent, brushing against the edges of perception and planting the seed of unease in the mind. Faint cries and whispers echo through the empty streets. The sounds are fleeting, sometimes just beyond comprehension, seeming to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. They stir a sense of curiosity and fear, drawing attention to corners where nothing seems to be, yet everything feels possible. Each sound is a reminder that the old district is alive with memories and presences that refuse to remain silent. Doors in the district behave strangely. As the sun dips below the horizon, they lock automatically, trapping those inside or barring entry to the unprepared. Some who pass through these doors find themselves changed, their experience within the district leaving an imprint that lingers long after they depart. The mechanisms are inexplicable, adding to the sense that the old district exists under rules that are not fully understood by the living. Walking these streets, visitors notice how the ordinary takes on a surreal quality. Lamp posts cast pools of light that seem to shift unexpectedly. Windows reveal fleeting shapes at the edge of vision, figures that vanish when approached. Every step seems amplified, the sound of footsteps echoing in empty alleys, blending with the whispers of the past to create an immersive atmosphere that is both captivating and unsettling. The architecture itself contributes to the unease. Each building tells a story through its decay, its peeling paint and creaking floors revealing a life once lived within. Upstairs rooms, darkened and abandoned, sometimes hum with energy. Visitors report sudden chills, objects shifting as if nudged by unseen hands. And the fleeting sensation of a presence brushing past them. The old district seems to watch all who enter, responding in subtle ways that heighten the tension and curiosity of every step. Even in moments of stillness, the district is restless. Wind whistles through narrow passages, carrying with it fragments of voices and cries that may not have been spoken in decades. The streets are quiet, yet full of story, as if the old district remembers each footstep, each voice, each life that has walked through its alleys. As if the old district remembers each footstep, each voice, each life that has walked through its alleys. Visitors often describe a feeling of being drawn deeper into the district. Compelled to explore despite the apprehension that rises within. Every turn seems to reveal something new, a flicker of movement, a whisper carried across the stone. A door that opens slightly to reveal a darkened interior. The experience is immersive, a slow unveiling of the district's many secrets. And it leaves an impression that is impossible to ignore. The old district is not simply a place of fear. Tragedies endured, and moments forgotten. Each element contributing to a sense of awe, reverence, and mystery. That envelopes all who venture there. As night deepens, the district transforms further. Shadows lengthen and merge, whispers grow faintly louder. And the feeling of being watched intensifies. Figures that seemed distant now appear closer. Just beyond the light, testing perception and imagination. Even familiar streets feel alien. As though they have shifted in the dark. The experience is intimate, cinematic, and hauntingly real. In every corner, the old district challenges understanding. Visitors sense the stories that cannot be told. The echoes of past residents who remain tied to the streets they once walked. The interplay of silence, sound, shadow, and light creates a narrative that is constantly unfolding, inviting exploration yet demanding caution. Those who leave the old district do so with an awareness of having stepped into a space where the ordinary and the uncanny coexist. The streets may appear empty, yet they remain alive with memory. Shadows linger in the mind long after departure, whispers echo in thought, and the sense of having encountered something beyond the everyday persists. The old district is the final haunted corner of Jefferson. A place where history, mystery, and presence converge. Shadows drift along streets, cries and whispers echo. And doors lock with a will of their own. It is a landscape that captivates and unsettles. Leaving every visitor changed. Carrying with them the weight and wonder of a place that refuses to release its secrets. Here, the past is never gone, the present is never certain, and the old district remains a living testament to the unseen, the unheard, and the unforgettable. Thank you for joining me tonight on this journey through 25 haunted small towns in Texas. These towns are quiet by day, but at night, they are alive with shadows, whispers, and restless spirits. If you ever find yourself alone in a small town as the sun sets, remember the stories you heard tonight. Respect the shadows. Heed the whispers. And beware. For some doors may lock, and some may never open again. Sleep well tonight, if you can. If you can.